Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you beautiful people out there, welcome to episode 28 of the Cross Your Bow podcast with my guest today, ONIthewicked. You guys can hit him up at ONIthewicked over on the Twitters or twitch.tv/ONIthewicked. One of the fantastic players that I've met recently. I mean, I guess it's been about a year or so since I've met, maybe even longer. I don't know. Either way, doesn't matter. But how you doing, man? What you been working on this week?
Not much. We've just finished up ranked 2 times, and we're kind of waiting for this clan brawls to come around, and looking forward at the new changes. I don't know. We're kind of in a weird time with
There's a
a
big
lot of things
transition.
being proposed by Wargaming that are really big changes to the game as a whole. With the turnaround of the NTC last week, and then now we have ifhe changes coming into play,
FAT
which will
changes, yeah. We'll talk about that
dramatically
here in a
change
minute.
a lot of things.
Yeah, it ifhe when it we'll just touch on it briefly here, and then we'll go into more detail later. But ifhe change is coming to where they're going to lower the fire chance, which I think is good, and I'll explain why a little bit later on. But let's. How was your rank sprint this season? I mean, I did it 4 times.
Very nice. It was pretty good. I mean, I played the first one I did with. I actually wanted to make it last as long as possible, so I played just a different ship every single time, and we finished it in. It was in one session. It was pretty fun, and then we did the next one I did with my buddy Doyle
Mm-hmm.
to try to go all the way without losing once, which we happened to lose actually twice. We were really close, but we faced the same group, and it was honestly it felt like a 2v6. It was pretty crazy,
Yeah,
but
I saw a lot of those this time around.
it was good though. I always enjoy rank sprint. I like those smaller size team game modes, and I don't think many people truly view rank sprint as like a ranked game mode. It's more of a
A fun game mode.
refresher. Exactly, yeah. So that's why I think sprint is always refreshing.
I like the rank sprint. We did it the first rank out on the Nelson, which is
Nice.
not a choice that I would. It's one of my favorite boats at Tier 7, but not a choice that I recommend for anybody because it just doesn't tank anything. Sign-ups looked at it and you just kind of fell apart. The only thing that it kind of tanked was the Leon and the Scharnhorst. Because of their small caliber guns, they really couldn't do much to it unless you were broadside.
Yeah.
But that's another story. Then we did it on the Colorado, on the sub account because that's the only boat I had at the time. Uh, 39 games for my first rank out, and then 29 games for the second rank out. I don't know why I got better at 10 games better the second time. I think it was just because I was jumping back and forth and then finally found the Nelson as opposed to the other one. I only had the Colorado, so I was only playing that boat. I think that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
The second time around, we ranked out on the Hydia, and then we got that the Boise package, and in one of the boats we pulled out the Atlanta, and I played the Atlanta for about half of the season, and then our battleships were so bad and not shooting the right targets that I was like, okay, fine. So I went back in and played Colorado and absolutely smashed everybody off the board. It was great.
Very nice.
Overall, man, I really enjoy these rank sprints, man. They're short, no CVs with the problem I have with CVs in rank season is that the less boats that are on the board, the stronger the CVs gets because
Very
there's
true.
less AA. What do you think?
That's completely true. Especially now. I mean, yes, CBs are not as strong as they were when they first were released, as it should be, but it's still at the lower tiers. I mean, CVs dominate um, tier 4 and above, up to the tier 6 is where you get to the where CVs are still pretty much the bullies of the match every single time. So in that, where you would have 5 surface ships and then a CV, the CVs would have no problem constantly spotting the destroyers. There likely wouldn't be enough AA to where if you have a Flint or an Atlanta, uh, that guy will obviously be the first priority of that team. So as soon as he's down, you pretty much have nothing. The
Right.
battleships of the tier aren't going to be able to do much anyways. So it would end up just being, you know, as it was in the last official rank season where uh, players that were below average in CV gameplay were ranking out faster than even Super Unicums in some cases, which is incredibly crazy in my opinion.
Dude,
Just because of that 50%,
we were watching. Somebody had like a 47% CV win rate and ranked out before I did. I took me 300 games though, 305 games, which is ridiculous, is a ridiculous amount. But finally got into the Conqueror, and I was like, I'm tired of this game. Let's just win. And ended up playing 46 games in the Conqueror, and then had 63% win rate out of those 46 games. So that's pretty decent. And we saved about half our stars. So I was like, let's just. Why didn't I do this earlier? But either way, that doesn't matter. Let's jump into the news here. The news, we got some big news, some quasi-big news. The Rogue Wave event ends on the whenever the patch ends, so 5.1, 5.0, whenever that's over, the Rogue Wave event will be over as well. So, guys, get it in there. If you guys haven't yet, you have the opportunity now. I think yesterday was the first day that people that did not buy it could earn the Benham. So you guys should be able to get that Benham once you finish up all the directives. And I recommend grinding that thing out. That thing is broken OP and will probably need require a nerf later on, honestly. The 65-second torpedo reloads on that thing are broken.
I got pinned by it once. Shot left side torps at me, staggered, and then he flipped, and then he shot staggered right side. So there was not like and I was in a Republic, so there was not, I would say maybe 20-second window that I was not being torped at because he was just rotating in circles in his smoke, shooting them forever, and I ended up dying to one ship just sitting there. It was pretty crazy. So if you like to torp people,
the boat is dumb.
That's your ship.
I'm telling you, the boat is dumb, man. It's pretty awesome. It's it's pretty fantastic. I know during all the feedback during the testing phases, I was telling them, I'm like, look, you guys put it at 10.5 kilometers. If you wanted to keep the torpedo reloader at 65, then 9.2 was fine. But when you raised it up to 10.5 kilometers, then you need to push it to 75 or 80 seconds on the reload to make it a little bit balanced. Right now at 65 and 10.5, it's ridiculously OP.
I completely agree.
Highly recommend that for everybody. That boat is really strong. Surprisingly enough, the next rank season is a tier 9 rank season. Could you figure that out? Did you figure that Georgia and the Benham coming out? It's gonna be a broken season. Actually, if they do it again, that's like I would like to see another arms race season. Man, that was so much. That like out of all the rank seasons, that was so much fun because it forced out of the camping mentality, and you have to go get these things. And destroyers were so strong.
Exactly. I think the arms race. I know a lot of people were super unsure of it before it started and even during, but once everybody reflected, especially after this last rank season where it was back to normal and everybody was like, why? Even the people that I'm friends with that were against arms race were saying, please bring back arms race, because it was just the static, boring, same old crap that was always in ranked, where you have these people everybody's either sitting around waiting, so you have people that are too passive, and then you have the people that are too aggressive and die, and then now you have one team that almost always can never come back because it's small. If it's a 7v7, if 3 ships die, the ratio it's so much harder to come back from that in comparison to in a normal random battle, because you have so many less ships. So if you give some slight buffs that you actually have to work towards, you can have situations where you have that 4v7 or whatever, and you can actually come back from it because ships are more powerful as you get the buffs. So like for me, I was able to come back from so many games because of that. Like in a cruiser, I was able to increase my rate of fires to a point where I could fight people if I was almost 2 cruisers.
I thought it was pretty interesting. We had a few games, not too many of them, where we were down by a lot, and one torpedo here, and then get a bunch of reloads, and you're able to gun a guy down, and that they didn't have it, and You kind of played the middle. They went to the outside. We played the middle, got the middle caps, and we just went on points, just because they weren't playing the objective properly. I thought it was great. Guys, we're hanging out with Oni the Wicked tonight. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we're talking about today, please at SirVenomIK there in the chat, and I will copy pasta them, and we will get to those toward the end of the cast. So space camos are available from July the 16th, which is today, to the 24th. So if you guys haven't got a space camo and you guys have seen them, I've played them, I love them. I think they're probably some of the best camos that they've put out, other than maybe the Halloween camos. I think those are probably maybe just a little bit better. But somebody else's flavor. They are in packages right now, and they're kind of expensive, but you'll get three each. So go check that out in the store. And coming up this weekend, the Marauder event. Are you taking part in this Marauder event yet? Have you applied for this thing?
I did apply for it. We'll see if Wargaming likes me enough to to pull me into it.
This will be from July the 19th till the 22nd, so starting on Friday. Registration is still open until tomorrow, so if you guys can hit up the forums and go check that out if you guys haven't, or if you guys want to try to get involved, y'all still have one day, and I believe they're going through handing out accounts at the moment. I'm not sure how they got it going on, but there's that. Marauder event. There's times where people play 5 and 7 and 6 and 8. That's kind of looks like for the whole weekend. Any time between, other than the ones specified on that link. For you guys over on YouTube, I'll leave it in the comment section below. Anything other than that is free play. So you'll see them nothing at 1, but you can go from 2 and above. So there's those things. You get some rewards. You get a flag for killing them, some doubloons, and credits or flags, and a bunch of other stuff. It's actually worth it, man. I really enjoy these events. It's just a chance for us to, for me, myself personally, just to kind of give back to the community, blah, 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 me and my altruistic self. Give back to the community. The community has done so much for me. Anything that I can do to help out, that's what I like to help out. So, what do you think of these events? Because I mean, it's taken an interesting turn. Because I remember the first event that I remember was the Corgi event, and then Pirates, and then they had the Masquerade event, and then I think that was in March, and now we're doing Marauder events. So,
I think it's nice. I mean, it's a way to get people involved. I actually just found out that. I just wanted to double check. I did get into that event, so you guys can try to destroy me.
Hi, Mom.
But basically, for anybody to be able to just get involved in an event is huge. I mean, it allows someone who wants to maybe even potentially get to a CC point or start streaming or whatever. They can feel a sense of involvement, and then from there continue on further. And for me, I mean, I just like to be shot at on an account that doesn't matter,
So if anybody who is accepted on that, congratulations. And I know in the past that any time that I do anything that you're going to get, just prepare yourself to get yelled at by the community and the players in that game saying, "Oh my gosh, you just threw your boat away." But after that, I had 6 kills and 2,100 base experience. But I just threw my boat away to give up those rewards. That's kind of the way that it works generally. But that's fun. Clan battles coming up. Tier 8, no carriers, 6v6, and 1 battleship limitations. This is the Neighbors series, which is a map that I despise. I don't really like Neighbors at all. But it's Neighbors, Hotspot, Trident, Sea of Fortune, the new map Greece, and then Mountain Range, another one that I'm not particularly care about. You're going to have cross-server matchmaking. Some special things for this, July 31st through August the 14th, you will get a Commander skill change for free. That's it. That is good. I like those free Commander changes. And I believe the season runs from July 31st to September the 15th on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. What did you think? I mean, you're more of a clan player, clan battle guy than I am. I don't particularly dip into that part of the game. But what do you think of the new cross server? How did that work out last season?
Um, it was interesting. I think it's at least for my clan. We're last season we were super busy. We have a lot of people that are in school and stuff, so um, we've been slightly out of tune, especially when they introduced it. I think for other clans and people who are going to really take advantage of it, I think it's a way to learn because a lot of times when you have the same server fighting each other over and over again, usually the team that might come up with a really good idea gets copied, and then you have a lot of the same strats and ship comps and everything like that. So if you fight another server, they have the same thing kind of going on for them, but their ideas are often different. So when they you mix them together, we usually bring things back, and so do they, which then ultimately churns the pot for the competitive scene across the board.
I think it's good. I think it's good for everybody, honestly, because you'll see the EU server. In my experience, and I don't know how this translates to clan battles, but the American server kind of semi. They're hybrid, passive, aggressive. And then there's a lot of real passivity over on the EU server, from what I can gather. And then there's a lot of aggression coming out. It's like we're kind of the middle ground for everything. Is I think the NA server. What do you think about the differences of play styles and how they interact with each other, other than a teaching aspect?
EU definitely, they're more. I feel like they're more in-depth strats. For me, I've always preached a very flexible, reactionary play style. So I mean, I have traditionally been a caller since way back in the APOC days and early Supremacy League, and since then I've always preached that for at least against the teams we face, um, let them make a move and we will make a better move after it to counter. EU does the opposite. They say we're going to make a move that's so good that you can't counter it unless you take drastic terms that could risk your ships getting sunk anyways.
Yeah.
And so for us like clashing like that, it's often a battle of wits. Like I know for Shipstorm that last match, when I was going up against with my guys, Sneaky Snake and Doyle, we were going up against the Derp team on the final round, and those guys are our friends. Like we know all of them. We talk to each other all the time, and so like having to battle each other at that high skill level was almost at the point of simply outwitting each other over outskilling, if that makes sense.
It does.
It was more of who can position simply better because we know that we're equal in almost every sense. And that was some of the most intense gameplay that I've ever experienced, to be honest with you. And for it to end in the way it did, it was simply that, like, I got outwitted. I made a mistake and I didn't call it, and that was it. And it was crazy because the other side knew that it was the same stakes, like they knew if they fucked up, it was over.
Yeah.
And I think for us learning something, and I mean, I've picked up on Lulu's strat. Anybody who saw that match, I mean, you better use that ring strat because that strat is good. Lulu, props to you, dude. But yeah, I mean, I just love the experience of getting some completely different mindsets that you don't really see here in NA.
I guess it's all about who can adjust to the enemy faster. I'm always a pretty flexible guy, and I think if you see this over here, I think one of the most frustrating aspects of this game is when you see, okay, I'm going over here, and they continue to go over there, but then we spot six guys. They continue to go over there anyway instead of flexing around and maybe I don't want to be here. Let's go ahead and start kiting, and let's play kite the whole entire game. I remember, for example, it was three versus like 7 on one side of the board, and we're on estuary. We're going over to the A cap from the bottom, and as soon as I rounded that corner, I saw 7 people on that side of the board, and I was like, "Nope, I'm out." I turned around and ran, and I'm in a Colorado, so there's really not running. It's kind of a slow jog,
Yeah.
and just started flinging AP, switched over and flung HE on the bow. You know, 'cause we're tier 8 games, so yeah, my guns don't pin North Carolina, so I just started flinging HE at the guy. You know, just trying to get
Yeah.
him mad, and. And we ended up winning that game because we stalled out that side of the cap, and it gave the rest of our team the time to get around. And the one guy that wasn't in the division with us that went over to that side just ran straight on in there and sat there. And he ended up dying very quickly. I was like, "Man, you need to run," and he's like, "No, I got this," and then like died. Pretty much instantly, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Forget that, dude." We ended up doing very well in the game. We won the game just because we stalled out that thing, and that was all because of flexibility. And if you guys can be flexible, then you're gonna win a lot more games as well. A lot more games.
Yeah.
That's right. So there's then clan battles is coming up. Good luck to everybody that's going to take part in clan battles. I probably will not. I'm sure some of my guys in the clan will, but I'm sure you guys are going to take part in this season here.
Yeah. So we're gonna be. We should be coming out somewhat stronger than before, as we do have a lot of people that are gonna be around, and being in a clan where for us most of us are equal, so we have a lot of flexibility for our competitive team to put in pretty much anybody and still perform at a high level. So that's going to be interesting to try to form a new roster. We do have a lot of new people coming into the clan from other clans. They came in around midway through or early on, late last clan battle. So we'll see how they perform as well. And I know there's so many people, I'm sure you've seen, because you've played the game for a long time. There's a lot of people that have been leaving the game as a whole. And so you have this opportunity for a lot of new players to kind of make a statement. Because I mean, obviously there's people that just started playing today and a week ago, a year ago, whatever, that would like to participate in the competitive scene. And a lot of the old guard of Supremacy League days are gone, and so there's few remaining now.
I think a lot of those clans have either disbanded or they've merged into other things, or I don't know. I mean, we did some casting for like the second or third season of Supremacy League, and then that's kind of disappeared. And I haven't really paid attention to them, man. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of hard to watch. I'll be fair, as a fan of knowing the game. But people that don't know the game, they have no idea what's going on, and it's up. I think it's up to the casters to bring them in and capture their attention, to get them to focus on the games. And there's a few out there that I think that do a very good job, but not many. But it's all on the casters, I think, to make that interesting for people to want to watch. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, people
that's one thing we've
outside of the
always struggled
community.
with.
That's the deal.
Yeah, we've always struggled with making Will the Warships into something that's bigger than just a backyard training room battles kind of gameplay. We tried to push it to the highest level it could reach, and unfortunately this game just it wasn't received by the masses in a competitive light as I hoped. Because you look at World of Tanks, I mean, they had much more
a championship
success
for a while.
Exactly.
TV spots, or
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
But
I think it's interesting, and the reason for that is the game is too slow.
Exactly.
The game is too slow, and
this
is where good casters come in to kind of fill in those dead spots, because there's out of a 20-minute game, you're going to have maybe, say, 8 minutes of actual action. The rest of it is positioning time. So you've got to fill in 12 minutes of nothing.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for people. And, with experience, they can get better at it. Tier 8 with no CV 6 versus 6. This is pretty decent. I know a lot of the guys that I talk to about clan battles, they're so tired of Tier 10 because it's been done to death. Tier 10 clan battles. Then here's a Tier 10 rank season. Here's a Tier 10 clan battles. Here's another Tier 10 rank season. And it frustrates me because I don't particularly think Tier 10 is a very balanced tier, because the cruisers are so much stronger than everything else at that tier. When you bring it down to tier 8, I think it puts it more into perspective of the competitiveness that the game should be, because everything at tier 8 is good.
Yeah, and I think with tier 8, it's probably the tier that rewards proper gameplay the most and punishes poor gameplay the most as well, because you have at tier 10, I mean, everybody's seen the time where that cruiser player that's playing absolutely terribly gets hit down to nothing, gets away, heals up over 5 to 10 minutes, and comes back, and he's not gone yet, and now he's a problem again. With tier 8, for the most part, obviously there's some cruisers with heals, but with cruisers, they're extremely powerful, but they're also easy to deal with if someone makes that easy mistake where at tier 10 it's not that big of a deal, right? If you get 30k chunked, you can heal back quite a bit of it, unless it's citadel damage purely.
Right.
So just from that aspect, it completely makes the matches much more skill wise, I guess, or like even just smart players, not even necessarily skill, but smart players will be rewarded much more greatly than players who are either overly aggressive or fail to think thoroughly where they want to position and stuff. And I do wish to see a more drastic return. Even do I think like King of the Seas and all that. That should be, we should try a tier 8 of that, because I think everybody's kind of tired of tier 10s, like you said.
I find
liven things up.
Well, with that being said, some of the top picks. I mean, the Vladivostok or the North Carolina, probably the top two choices, I think, for Battleship. Looking at Cleveland, St. Louis, for probably cruisers. Man, there's so many. There's like literally anything. Like there's going to be a lot of Kudersofts out there with that smoke ability. And then Loyang is going to be probably the number one DD with that Hydro.
I think for the reason why it's nice is because tier 10 you often see a lot of the same kind of ships the same ships will be run with the same builds, and it's a lot of just repeat. There's a lot of multiples of the same ships, but tier 8 there's not only more ships in general, but there's a much more diverse selection that you can choose from.
Hang on, let me look at this list here. Somebody said, I got a list from Little White Mouse the other day. There's 30 premiums at tier 8. So that just tells you there's 30 different choices right there, just on the premium side.
Exactly.
There's not too many. There's not too many at tier 10, which makes every game different. Every game is different, and I think that's something that Clan Battles has needed for a while, because every game is pretty much the same. Henry on the outside, Republic following him. Blah, 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 it gets kind of old, and I think they've finally listened to the community and saying that tier 8. Honestly, dude, I think everything should be competitive at tier 8. Rank season tier 8, Clan Battles tier 8, whatever. Anything that they do past that, all tier 8. Tier 8 is great. And tier 6 is another one of those balanced tiers. I find that that's pretty balanced. Everything is pretty good. 7's another story, but
I think with the one thing that's really important with 8 is that someone can take a ship that's not necessarily known to be that quote unquote good or fitting into a say actual tournament comp, but they can play that ship well and still suffice and win games compared to at tier 10. If the meta is Henry and then Moskva and Kremlin and blah blah blah, and you have these ships that are just almost, for a lot of people, brainless choices that just you think it's either this or nothing. I have to take this, because if I take Hindenburg, I'm not going to do good.
Right.
But in comparison, at tier 8, you can take a Roma and do good. If you like Roma, you can play it. If you can play Roma well, you can do good in it.
Right.
If you want to take an NC, you can do that. And any ship almost. There's a few exceptions, but there's a lot more ships that are able to work, and that just makes it better, because you're not forced to pick the same 3 ships every single game.
Over and over. I find, I mean, like, In randoms, it's a totally different story. You won't see a whole lot of low yangs in randoms, but in rank season or the last rank season that they did, low yang was everywhere because they
Yeah.
just recently buffed the 5.4 kilometer detection, 5.5, whatever if you want to call it, or the hydro, and the rest of the boat is just pure and utter trash. The torpedoes don't hit for anything, and the gun, you're only 4 guns, and they're Benson guns, and they're not that great. So everything else but that hydro is fantastic, and you can do some really nasty work using that hydro to your advantage. So
Yeah.
I find that one just so good. I'm interested to see the Cossack coming into clan battles. That is one of my favorite DDs at tier 8. One of the in my number one thing that they put out premium wise in 2018 was the Cossack. That thing is just so strong. So it'll be
Very
it'll
true.
be an interesting dynamic to see what the teams bring in clan battles coming soon for you guys, if you guys are into that kind of thing. A couple more things here. Big, huge, I guess, huge announcements for 5 boats on the up and coming. Recently released list. As we found out last week, the Colbert and the Ohio are coming via the NTC whenever that comes out. They haven't decided when yet. They're still working on trying to figure out a way to implement that. Also, the Smolensk is coming out for coal. They didn't say how much or when, but they said it would be there. The Summers is going to come out for steel, which I highly recommend that boat. It's ridiculous. And then you have the Friesland's going to be a free XP ship. And now, I don't know. The Friesland is pretty dirty support, almost like Udaloy style. If you play it
Yeah.
with another DD, you're going to monster it. But if anybody tries to push you down, since you don't have any torps, you're just run, just go. There's no reason to hang out and die because you're not gonna dissuade them from pushing you at all. So there's that. What do you think of these, man? I mean, you saw them. I don't know if you got a chance to play them on the public server or anything like that.
Yeah, so I have played most of them. I would say there's a lot of really good ships. For me, I think my favorite so far is the Smolensk, and I'm just I'm a light cruiser main. I love
Yeah.
light cruisers. I just enjoy the combination of DD play and cruiser play in terms of your positioning and low detection, all that kind of stuff, and being able to really get into wedge positions against the enemy team and do work. So that's probably going to be my top pick for what I'm going to be looking to get first. Friesland is really good for, like you said, rolling with destroyers. It's an incredible DD hunter. You can use your hydro if people are pushing you or you're running away, like you were saying. You can actually use that hydro to try to bait them to run into you. So say if you're you could stop or slow down and let them catch up and try to pick a fight with them. See if they keep pushing, pop your hydro, pop your smoke, or be with your teammates and use their smoke as well. Keep that guy hydroed, and then with your gun power, eliminate him and keep
It's a
escorting
1.8
on the
second
flank,
reloads
so.
on this thing.
Yeah,
So no reason.
it's incredible.
No reason
It's
to
incredible.
take BFT at all. 1.8 seconds is enough. 120 millimeters. It's kind of a funky. It's kind of a funky gun caliber. I find that ifhe on this thing doesn't really do all that much, but without it, I do just as much. So like 120 is a really weird caliber gun. I don't know. It's been pretty interesting. I've been playing it with RPF, trying to find out where these guys are, and of course the adrenaline rush, because you don't really tank very well. This thing does not take damage very well, so you will lose hit points. But the games that I was very patient and I kind of sat back and I was able to put fires down. It's got 11% fire chance with DE. You can put flags on this thing. It's just a monster. It's like a 2-gun Kitakaze, just the amount of spray that it comes out in the hairy gumbos.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's great. For me, my choice would be the Summers. I love DD play. I'm not really main anything, but lately I've been playing a lot of destroyers. Well, I mean that's what all the testing ships, the French DDs out there. And out of all the ones that I've been playing, you take BFT on this one because it's got a 5-second reload. Get it down to 4.5, so maybe you can trade with a gearing or something like that if you have to. But you kind of have to be smart with your. You can't just go balls deep on these guys. You have to outplay them mentally, or they will hurt you. But on the other hand, you could also play it. You could also play it like a lot of the potato shamakazis, and they go out to the 10 line and just drop their torpedoes in. This has 16 gearing size torps. 16.5 kilometers going 66 knots at 17,900 damage. Fantastic boat. I really enjoy that one. As for the Colbert in Ohio, or honestly, the Colbert and the Smolinks, Friesland, they don't need to be in the game. Honestly, that's my opinion. They don't need to be here. We've already got enough HE spam. And the Ohio, I'm not a big fan of the Georgia, so I probably won't like the Ohio just because it has the 4 guns. The lack of guns really puts me off on some of these boats.
I've been the same with volume. I often, because this game is so reliant, like we were talking about earlier, reliant on RNG to favor you naturally, regardless of how perfect your shot is. You have more of a chance to, at least with consistent hits where you're trying to hit somebody with more volume. So, I mean, that's why I view like Georgia. I consider it more of I like to call them more like meme boats, because in a competitive environment, they'll never really be truly, like say there was a tier 9 tournament where you could select ships. I don't think it would be used that much because of that.
Because of I mean, you have more utility coming out of Missouri with that radar and 9 guns versus 6 guns. I think I would take the more guns, even if they were smaller. Yeah. I could potentially hit more. Exactly. I went to when I went to I ran past a Musashi the other day, and I hit him with my back guns, and I did 32,000, 2 citadels, and I left him on 10,000 hit points. And I said, if that was a Missouri, I would have killed him, because I would have hit 3 citadels for about 35,000 or 40,000. And I just the problem I have with a lot of the secondary boats, this falls right in that category, is their main guns. It's just not good enough. The Bismarck main guns just aren't good enough. When you're, say, fighting a North Carolina, you put them in there on the side, and just not strong enough. Massachusetts, good luck. I pray for your dispersion. Because if you can hit them, then fine, it does good. But good luck hitting them. I don't know, man. I can't get behind 6 guns on 3 turrets. It bothers me.
Yeah, and I think one thing to keep in mind is, in this game, how they balance things, or at least when they create them, is they have a scale of offensive and defensive capabilities, and the more offensive capabilities that you have, the less defensive that you'll have, and vice versa. So it's a push and a pull for both of them. So like for Massachusetts, having a lot of offensive capabilities takes away from the defensive, and also takes away from, in this case, the main guns being effective, because your secondaries kind of fill that void for use. Right. So, and that's why when I play them, I can never be like serious with it, because it'll never perform at the level that I want it to. Because there's the times where you just get jebaited hard by whiffing a salvo that literally I mean, there was one, I'm like, my grandma I could have pulled her in here right now and just gave her the mouse and said click.
Right.
And she could have hit more shells than I did shooting at this guy. And it just is like, sometimes it's not fun to play those ships. Other times, like I said, if you're in that mindset to just whatever, sure. But
generally, when I play the Massachusetts, I'm like, all right, guys, let's just do something stupid and trolly, and I just play the Massachusetts. I don't take that boat seriously. I think it's a terrible boat. I think the Georgia's a terrible boat. The Bismarck is a terrible boat. Anything that main secondaries, and that's your main source of damage, then I'm sorry, you're not a battleship. You're something else. The battleships. But here's another thing that I never understood, and this kind of ties into the next boat we're going to talk about, the Siegfried. Did you get a chance to play the Siegfried at all?
I did.
All right. So I like the dispersion on it. But the only downside I have to this, they have them same shitty fucking German 15-inch guns, dude. The 15-inch guns have got to be the worst guns in this fucking game, especially for tier 8s and above. Because you're fighting tier 10s all the time. You have absolutely no penetration power on your AP. Your AG does fuck all. And you really, it's just a terrible, terrible gun. I'm sorry, Bismarck and Tirpitz fans out there, Gneisenau fans, those guns are shit. I'm sorry. They just cannot put people down.
The problem is that it relies on the enemy to essentially say, "Here, kill me," right? Because if someone says, there's a battleship, right, and you're off in the distance, he doesn't know you're there. He's broadside you, right? You get your shot off, and you might do 10,000, 20,000, whatever if you get that broadside shot. But as soon as he decides, "Hey, I don't want you to shoot at me anymore," effectively, and if that guy's smart, he's gonna know. If I simply go like this and bow onto this guy, he becomes basically ineffective.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting there going,
what do I do now? Okay.
I don't have anyone else to shoot at, so I'm going to shoot at this guy for 3 minutes and do like 6,000 damage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
Now, overall, I didn't mind playing the Siegfried. I thought the accuracy was fantastic on it. Even with the 6 guns, I understand it's a cruiser, but I also enjoy the Graf Spee. I really enjoy that boat, and even though those guns are on the 11-inch guns are atrocious as well, and the accuracy on those things are terrible as well, I really enjoy the gameplay, and I really do like the gameplay of this boat. Just the main guns need something. They need to up the alpha or something on the HEs, because there's literally very little that you can do to people to
I think one thing they could do that would help quite a bit is increase the accuracy a little bit. Or sorry, not the accuracy, the shell
velocity.
Velocity, yeah, my bad. The velocity increase would help quite a bit in a multitude of situations, but more so if someone's bow on to you, you can effectively shoot where you want to do damage, which would be, in this case, against most battleships, the only place you can do damage is the superstructure. And so if you have that really good accuracy, you can at least get some overpens or pens on the superstructure, which will... You're not going to be doing, 10, 20K that way, but you're at least able to do something.
Fine.
Exactly. You're able to do
5, 6K
something.
is fine. I mean, you say that you saw that with something like the Azuma, which doesn't get talked about a whole lot. It's a really decent boat. The guns, if they're inaccurate, but they are pretty decent guns. When you hit for 5,000, 6,000 on HE alone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these are 310s. Why is a 15-inch gun, such as a 380, not having the same, if not better damage, better alpha damage? I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to me. How would I go from a 310 or 305 or whatever the hell it is? I'm not sure. But it's better than a 15-inch gun damage, that's for sure. The only 15-inch guns in this game that I think are halfway decent are the French ones, because they actually have a pretty decent alpha versus armor, as opposed to the Germans, which are just bad.
Yeah. Now the question is, do they venture away from their, like, do they allow an exception to venture from their, this nation's specialty is this, and this is what they're weak at. And for the Germans, that weakness is their HE on a lot of their ships. Like the Z-52 HE alpha is terrible. Is horrid. The alpha is horrid.
Same with the 46.
And the HE on the cruisers, although it pens amazingly, the HE is still terrible. The Hindenburg, the only reason why it does so much damage consistently is because of the pen. It's not because of the damage. If a Zao could pen that same amount at 50 millimeters, the Zao would be doing 10K salvos consistently with HE, but it can't. So it's, now you have to flip it and say, okay, well, because this ship only has 6 shells coming out every, 25 seconds, do we need to change something about it to make it better?
Kind of what they did with the Georgia, and I hate touting on the Georgia at all, but those guns, when they hit hard. I mean, they're 457s, and I think that was the compensation of them only having 6 guns, is that they put the big ass guns on there to give it more damage. I think that you need to do something similar to this, give it a little bit more damage on the HE, because right now I don't find it very competitive at all.
Yeah. No,
Even
I
even
agree.
in random games, and not to mention those torpedo angles are they're not the greatest,
Hmm.
and they don't hit very hard, so I don't
And the
really see
Citadel is pretty high.
yeah, I mean,
And it's
I don't see the benefit of like if you're playing say the Graf Spey, for example, it's got really good torpedo arcs coming off of the back,
yes.
and the risk for you to use those torps is viable because the torpedoes actually hit for a big decent amount of damage, as opposed to the Siegfrieds where you have really bad arcs, and even if you did get them off, you're going to risk a lot to get very little damage because those torps don't do enough, I
Hmm.
don't think. So I think maybe if they
Yeah.
up that and maybe up the alpha, I think that boat would be right where it needs to be. Overall, it was decent to play, and other than the alpha damage on the HE and 15-inch guns on the 15-inch guns AP, you know what you have to do there, so there's really nothing to complain about there. But
Yeah.
yeah, you got to up that HE alpha to make it viable. And that's
I
my
agree.
opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know questions and comments in the chat here. We're hanging out with my man Oni the Wicked. You guys can catch him over at twitch.tv/OniTheWicked. Right there at OniTheWicked over on Twitter if you guys want to go hit him up on the Twitters. Of course, I am at Sir Venom IK. You guys can hit me up at Sir_Venom_IK and over here on twitch.tv/Sir Venom IK if you guys are over on the YouTube channel. All right, so there you go. That's all the news that I got. There's another one last minute, but I didn't really get a chance to read into it, so we'll save that for next week. Are you ready? Are you ready, boys? Are y'all ready to get to know Oni the Wicked just a little bit better? Are y'all ready for the 9 questions of averageness? All right. Question number 1. How did you find World of Warships?
Well, it was back in 2015, right around the game's release. It was just, I think, about a week after, and one of my buddies from high school had messaged me and said, "Hey, this new game came out. It's about warships. It's really cool. You should check it out." And I was like, I'll watch this trailer. I watched the trailer. Seemed pretty cool. I downloaded it, not really being too sure if I wanted to play it much, and I started playing the battleships first, went up Japanese battleships, and started brawling a lot, and then I just fell in love with. That was that my initial fascination was with brawling and effectively blowing the shit out of people because I just love to. I don't know.
I like to blow
Fuso
shit
was
up.
my go-to, and
I mean,
yeah.
it was.
So
I
then
mean,
I
it
kind
was
of got
nice.
into it and kept going and going and going. All of a sudden, clans became a thing, and that sparked my interest in
That's
competitive. And
relatively
now we're
recent,
here.
actually. Clans are relatively recent in comparison, but yeah.
Exactly. I did play for quite a while. I've pretty much never stopped. The longest I've stopped playing for was 3 months, and that was 2 different times. One was when I was initially deployed, where I had no
No way to
way to
play.
play at all, and the other time was when I went to Texas and for a training there, and I was just super busy, and I took a break for a little bit. Other than that, I've pretty much played every single week, not every day, but every week. I
Yeah,
think that's good enough for 4 years in.
yeah.
Um,
I know we
and now,
just passed over 3 years myself, and it's been pretty much nonstop. I think I've taken a total of 2.5 months off over the course of 3 years, and it's one to play another game, one to take care of my father. So other than that,
yeah.
that's about it, man. All right, question number 2. What was your motivations to go from a player to start streaming?
Um, well, as you know, I'm friends with Saratha Warmonger and Virtual Senpai, and
Static's great. Warmonger's great.
I was
Senpai's
I was
awesome.
on my deployment when Static started streaming, and me and him at the time were, I mean, right just before that, we had been playing together almost every day and getting and just helping each other get better. And so his idea was like, okay, I'm gonna stream because one, I played this game a lot. Two, I think allowing people to get like helping people get better in general from our experiences would be a really cool thing to do. So
Yeah.
he started, I saw his success, and that motivated me. And then when I got back, I started, and I just started giving it as much advice as I possibly could to everybody that asked, and I still try to do that today. That's my biggest motivation is helping people to overcome something, whether that's an issue with a certain ship, or if they were having an issue with a line or the game in general, them coming back a day or a week later and saying, "Hey, by the way, I got better results, and this is helping," and that just is what fueled me to continue and kind of take it to the next level. So
That's fair. I know a lot of us. I've had several different guests on the channel here, and most of them say pretty close about the same thing. They wanted to help people
yeah,
out. They wanted, teach people the proper way. And I know when I first started, it was like, hey, let's try what this is. And then I got into the mentality of the game, and I was like, yo, this is great. This game
mm-hmm.
is fantastic, and I absolutely love it. So I enjoy being able to help teach people the basics of the game, because a lot of people miss out on the minutia, because they just, it gets lost in a lot of things, like, hey, I'm going
Yeah,
into this camp. Why did you pop your you're not spotted? There's no reason to pop your smoke when you're not spotted, because you're just inviting that enemy. And a lot of people do that, and they don't realize that they're doing something that could be detrimental to them or to their, and
exactly.
so
Yeah.
so I've kind of focused mine on the very basics, and as opposed to somebody like yourself that would focus on the very high level stuff. I'm a more average guy. More average guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
So you're relatively new to streaming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you've been streaming what, about a
It's
year
about
or
6 months.
so? About 6 months.
Only
Okay.
6 months. Yeah.
So being relatively new to a streamer, what have you hoped to gain by streaming?
Um, I mean, that's hard for me to say exactly. Ultimately, it's something that I fell in love with, and the interaction with my community is ultimately like is become my favorite thing, and what I look forward to is people coming in and seeing the same people, um, and just being able to keep up with these. I mean, people from Norway, Germany, like Spain, France. How many places do you get to go to have all those people just hang out together? It's just such a cool experience. Um, and so for me, I mean, that's all I hope to gain truly, is a community that is respectful and pursues knowledge in anything they do, uh, and is willing to help other people. That's ultimately what I want, honestly.
Yeah. All right. Let me redirect this question as well here, because you said something. What do you think your ideal viewer would be?
Ooh,
And because that's a hard question.
yeah.
That's a hard question.
The ideal viewer is someone who is, I guess, a open-minded person. I think that's probably what I look forward to in someone the most when they start talking to me in chat, is if someone's open-minded, where if I do something a little different or whatever, it's not a betrayal of humanity. I mean, you have those people
It's
that,
the end of the world.
exactly. If I do anything that's like slightly out of the norm, it's like, oh my, I don't know. If I like Chad Conqueror is the thing that we do where we play Conqueror sometimes, where it's just the build is completely wrong. You should never do it. Nobody should ever do it. It's terrible. But it's just like, that's the fun of it, is it's so bad that it's just to see how good you can do. And there's
Yeah.
some people that would actually be like, wait,
Why are you
how
doing
can
this?
this even be happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, do you not see the true reason?
Yeah.
So I would say the open-mindedness of it leads to everything else, of all the other qualities that I think most streamers would kind of seek. But yeah,
That's a very admirable thing. I think people having open minds, because I have opinions, you have opinions, and they might differ, and they might coincide on some things. I am very staunch on my opinions, and I try to go out of my way to explain the reasons why I say what I say, and the
mm-hmm.
reasons why I do what I do. And I think a lot of people get offended by that, because, oh, you don't like this boat. Well, obviously you don't know how to play it, and I'm like,
Yeah,
that always drives me nuts when when people say something like that, because I've 13,000 games and I've got 150 games in the Bismarck. I think I can legit say that I don't like this boat, and it fails in a lot of areas. You don't like the Bismarck, you don't know how to play it, blah, 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 blah. That's what I get.
I feel you. Yeah.
So I totally understand the open-mindedness there. So question number 4, what has been your biggest setback, streaming-wise or game-wise, and how have you overcame that setback?
I would say, I've obviously don't have too much experience, but I do have one time in that short duration that I have been streaming so far that it was a big event, and that was me getting out of the military. And I know that you yourself have experienced it in the past, and for me, just getting started and kind of having that initial boost from my friends, and everything was kind of going really well, and then I realized, oh crap, I'm in a really bad situation where I have to kind of cut off streaming when I'm at my biggest burst so far. And that was a really big deal, and it really bummed me out because I had no choice. I had to leave, and moving from Hawaii back to Minnesota, that takes a long time for all my stuff to get here.
Yeah, that's
so
a
what I ended
shock
up
and everything.
Exactly. And what I ended up doing was I sacrificed taking extra things for just quality of life, like my camera and I don't know, a bunch of other things that I would have liked to have had right away. I left them behind, and that was to take my computer and my monitor and bring that with me as my extra checked baggage to have it so that I could get back and start streaming at least with the bare minimum right away. And so then we started, and I had to use my phone, and I was like, holy crap, this is terrible. And I didn't know what time I should start at. It was crazy. It was really, honestly, it was rough. I was pretty down for a while, but now we started to propel back, and we're kicking ass now. So
yeah, hell yeah. It's always a hard thing when you're starting to gather steam as a streamer, and then something happens to where you're not able to stream.
Yeah.
You tend to lose that steam. It's very depressing. It's very off-putting.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, I mean, just whatever. But keeping with it and persevering through all the downtimes will help out in the future. Trust me, my friend. Trust me. It's a long road, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the longer you do it, the easier it gets, and the more things you'll see. My question number 5 deleted, so I'm going to make one up. All right. So you've been around the community since pretty much the inception of the game. What changes have you seen in the community in the game, and via your experience with the community here on Twitch?
I would say as a community as a whole, probably the biggest change has been, at least in game, more people are generally understanding to some extent what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. Of course, you still have a lot of people that are just in their own world, but I feel like that the average quality of games has reached a slightly better point than it has been in the past. And it's hard to look back because oftentimes every time I have a bad game, I'm just like, I think the same thing every time. I could have one bad game a week compared to 7 a week, and I'd still feel kind of the same until I really reflect on it.
Right.
But I feel like more people generally just understand what to do. I feel like if you look at people sailing broadside at higher tiers, that doesn't happen anymore. At least
I've noticed,
at least
yeah.
rapidly. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of slowly evolving into at least a somewhat more cognizant player base. I don't know. I mean, before it was just, I mean, every game. I swear. I think this is funny. I don't know if you remember this, but probably 2 years ago, and then all the way back to the beginning, because Atago has been out forever. There was almost always that Atago player that would sail into the middle of the map in the beginning of the game, get spotted, broadside, turn out, and get deleted. Every single time. And I feel like that was kind of what I gauged it on, and it slowly shifted to where now you rarely see that.
I'd be honest with you, man. I don't see a whole lot of Patagos anymore. Every once in a while, I'll see them. I don't think it's. It is a very good boat, but I don't think it's much played as it used to be.
No.
Since previous to 2 years ago, there was very few premium ships at that level.
Mhm.
You had a few, Kudasov, the normal stuff, Tirpitz and Otago. That was it for a while. And then you started seeing a big mass influx over the last 2 years of more things, and so more things are getting played now.
Yep.
So I still like the Otago. I still like shooting at the Otago. Hit that middle back, baby. Hit that middle back, and you're going to knock the hell out of
Yeah.
that. And it was always, okay, there's
Yeah.
an Otago coming for me. Guys, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I don't have to sweat it. He's going to go broadside eventually to get that backset of
Yeah.
torps off. And boom, as soon as he
Exactly.
do it, every time. But I haven't seen that in a while. More of the Otago players now are the ones that have played it for a long time. They understand that staying
Yeah.
away is probably a better idea. And if you do need to push, just drive by them. Just drive right
Yeah.
past them.
And prior that play style had expanded into a lot of other ships. But like I said, now I mean, there's more ships dodging. There's more people that are changing their speed consistently, so that they, or I guess inconsistently, so that it's harder, for destroyers to torp them. Essentially, the base foundation kind of gameplay tips are actually being followed by a lot more people now, and which, like I said, it does affect the game quality slightly to bring it up a little bit. It's not a dramatic, crazy change where you never have games that are like one-sided,
But do
but
we have. Anyway.
but you at least have somewhat consistency.
I have noticed that the games have gotten a little bit closer. In the higher tiers, I think it's more of a route. Probably about 60% of the games that I play is more of a route. But last night we had some really tight games. Probably two of the closest games that I've seen in a very long time. We had to kill this guy. We had him down to 3,500 in the time right now, and he was dying because he was on two fires. But we just ran out of time. And we also had another game that was pretty close that I went to get a cap, and one of the beautiful people in the channel was like, "You're wasting your time. Don't go get that cap." And I was like, "I'm going to get that cap. Shut up." And it's either that or I'm fighting a Black and a
Yeah.
Henry in a Benham or whatever boat I was in, which
Yeah.
is not a good matchup for me. So yeah, and I think that's the games have gotten better, so I tend to agree with that. All right, guys, we're hanging out with Oni the Wicked. Guys, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we're having today, we will do a Q&A session toward the end of the show. So you guys at SirVenomIK with those, and I will copy pasta those into my little piece of paper here that I got open on my desktop, and we will ask those questions coming up at the end. Question number 6. Well, what would you say makes you different and stand out as a streamer? Why should people come and watch your damn channel?
Well, I try to provide the sometimes rare combination of high skill, low salt, and that's across the board with any game. I really strive for that because personally, within me, it ultimately makes games not fun, and I played this game at a level where I couldn't. I was almost never happy, and this is when I was doing I was like stat crazed, and I could not have a good game. Any game, 250,000 damage, 300,000 damage, not good enough. Nothing was good enough, and that never made me happy. And so it was a very long journey, and even when I started streaming initially, I still struggled with it. But now I at least have evolved to the point where I can play, and I'm kind of content with whatever happens because I just do my best to not care, because ultimately the people in the stream might not want to see me complain and bitch about everything all the time. So for me, I just kind of cut it out.
I know that's one of the hardest things for me to have to do is cut out the salt. That we did. I get very frustrated when I know I'm better than the way I'm playing, and I'm better
Yes.
than what the results are showing.
Yes.
That's where a lot of my frustration comes from, and then I lash out at this boat this boat's accuracy is so see, this is what I'm talking about, people. How can anybody like this? And I still get salty, and because I care. I want to perform well, and I want the game to let me perform well. And sometimes the game
Yep.
just says fuck you, and
Yeah.
that's so frustrating. And I just I have anger management issues. That's where I fail.
There's two things that I actually still struggle badly with not getting upset by. One of them is people in game that are blatantly being like disrespectful to everybody on the team by, like, say some guy's team killing or whatever, or like uh I don't know, the guy that's in A10 when the nearest guy is 25 kilometers away, like that person, and you
Dropping his
he
torps that are 6 kilometers.
yeah, just basically messing with everybody else's gameplay, um, and they don't care. That, and then the other thing is misfortune, and this game has a lot of misfortune. So, I mean, just thinking about it, there's so many different. I mean, we were talking about it earlier with the whole stopped Kutuzov, fire at it, literally no hits or whatever. And those things, like you were saying, it kind of reflects on. I know I'm better than this,
Yeah,
so I have to understand that it's RNG,
yeah.
not me.
And everybody knows
Or
in
is it me? Yeah,
my channel that RNG sucks.
RNG sucks ass.
RNG sucks. I even got an emote made for RNG sucks, uh, because it does not like me at all.
Yes.
All right, moving on to question number 7. Who influences you as a person to go to that next level? A person, artist, to book a movie, to go to that next level game wise, or go to that next level streaming wise, or just in general statement.
So this is gonna be a super like basic white guy answer, but, or I guess basic white streamer answer, but basic, like, I'm not even joking. But Shroud is like my kind of model for who I want to emulate, I guess, or I guess become my own version of Shroud. Not necessarily fill his shoes, but like in that aspect of how he conducts himself. Where watching him just get like shit on in a game and just not care is the key to it all, really. I mean, being able to just be like accept those situations where I can't do anything, um, and not only that, but at like still playing at a really high level.
Mm.
I eventually would like to branch out and become more of a variety streamer, and to do that, I like to play games at a high level, regardless of what it is. And so, um, he is kind of the same way, but he always keeps his cool, and I think he has a remarkable community, and I mean, he
Poise.
streamed for a year with one viewer, and that was his self. So
Yeah,
that's the other, keep it up kind of thing. So
absolutely. I know. Streaming wise and branching out into other things. The only recommendation and the only advice I have is to do it now. Start
hmm
now and start doing it now. Play your ships as your main game or whatever, and then transition Sundays and go play something else, or Mondays or
yeah,
whatever. However often you do it, because the longer that you sit on one game, the harder it is to transition to something else. I am living proof, because I played this game, nothing but this game, for 3 years, and if I go play something else, there's very few. But that's besides the point. But start it now. That's my only recommendation. Because if that's what you
gotcha,
want to do, there's no reason, there's no time like the present, then do it. Do you
gotcha.
have any tips for streaming to an aspiring streamer or a ship streamer?
The best thing is, I think, consistency and interacting with viewers. That's how you're going to get your initial base. If there's a lot of people that have been in my stream, have watched me for a while, and then mentioned to me, or I see them streaming at another time, and um, to get that growth, to get off the floor, to at least start moving up towards the top of the boards, is that audience interaction, because everybody wants to feel like they're welcome to a stream. So um, that's the biggest thing I'd say. And don't be afraid to talk to other people. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is if you talk to somebody is that they don't respond or something. Like you're never gonna get a worse answer than simply no.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and try to make as many friends as possible.
I think that goes into for new streamers. You have such a short amount of time to capture somebody's interest, 15 to 30 seconds. So
Yes.
always jabber. I jabber all the time about random nonsense that has nothing to do with the game, and I so and I catch myself. I watch some of these old clips that people clip out about me, and or they clip out, or I watch some old highlights or old games, and there's just big chunks of time where I'm not saying anything because I'm concentrating so hard on actually playing the game, and paying attention to the chat is good, but there's sometimes where it's the game takes priority.
Exactly.
And then and I think that the people in the ships community understand that. But for those 5 minutes while you're getting into position to do whatever you're gonna do, yeah,
Oh,
just
exactly, yeah.
jabber on, man. That's it's great.
Yep.
And play in a division. Play in a division.
Yes.
Yep.
Helps.
And now for question number 9. Do you feel a little bit more average here, bro? I know you're up on that higher echelon there. Did I bring you down a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like 50. I'm 50-50 right now.
There you go. What is your biggest tip in the World of Warships for a new player?
Biggest tip, I would have to understand not only your own ship but your opponents, and there's a lot of ships in this game now, so you're gonna have to learn a lot of things. So research is going to be a huge thing, and also understanding the game mechanics, because that was one of the biggest problems that I had when I was trying to transition to the higher level or just improve myself in general. Was why is this happening? How is this happening? And understanding how uh, you know fires work, floods work, all that is huge. And Wargaming has done a really good job of making that very accessible. They actually have a YouTube series that you guys can go check out on their main page, where they essentially describe exactly
how it works
in depth every single detail of the mechanics. And I remember when that came out, I was already in ZR and everything, and I shared it, and everybody was like, "Wait, what?"
That's
how
I
never
works?
knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew that, and that's so crazy to hear that from so many players that have played this game at a very high level, and everybody. I mean, it was across the board. I spread that all to everybody I knew because it was huge.
Yeah, it's knowing the mechanics of the game, how shells interact with the water, how shells interact with you, how fire interacts with you. That was a big deal, and alleviating some of the stressors that I had, because my biggest issue with this game is still fire chance, but that's another story we're going to talk about a little bit. Maybe something alleviation coming up here in a second. But my biggest tip is generally pay attention to the minimap. Turn on those last known positions, turn on the names on the mini map, so you know when you're going into a corner, you know what's coming with you or what's coming around you. And once you start paying attention to that, then you're able to make educated decisions on, okay, well, there's 6 people here, I'm going over here, and then you don't die because you weren't paying attention and don't know that there were 6 people coming around that corner. And you're
Exactly.
like, I don't know what the fuck happened. Where's my support? Blah, and start blaming everybody else. Because inevitably, the first guy that dies, I don't know, something about being dead turns these people into Admiral fucking Nimitz, man. Holy shit. I don't know what that is.
Exactly.
I know I do it sometimes, but it's generally it's actually, let's go get caps is basically what I say. Let's go get caps. Or why are you shooting HE or AP out of a Cleveland onto a battleship that's bow into you? I mean, come on, man. Use your boat properly.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, boys, there's the 9 questions of averageness. That is in the books, guys. We're hanging out with ONIthewicked. You guys can hit him up over at ONIthewicked over on Twitter, twitch.tv/ONIthewicked. Highly recommend go checking out his channel. Of course, the next thing that we have to move on is the new ifhe changes. Now, ifhe and you, my friends. Now, I remember when ifhe came out, it was game changing. It took the battleships from being pretty much the prominent damage dealer in the game and kind of shifted them aside a little bit and let the cruisers step up a level. The initial, because in reality you might lose a little bit of fire chance, but in the long run it's kind of a wash, and it's actually even better because you end up getting more pin damage, and the more pin damage means a higher percentage of fires. So now, now you were playing back then before the IFHE and then after the IFHE, just like I was. And before,
Yeah.
Atlanta without IFHE, it did okay. I mean, it was fine. And you still to this day can play the Atlanta very well and very efficiently with note, but you are looking for fires to do your damage as opposed to the alpha and the fires. So you're kind of limited on one aspect without IFHE even today. What did you think about the initial IFHE when it first came into the game?
I thought it was really good, but this is from my perspective, it was on doing well personally, not necessarily trying to look at the game as like what is truly balanced and what is not. And for me, being able to utilize it to its full effect in cruisers and staying alive and just, constantly HE spamming, it was great. But it kind of could be overboard in some ways and was often abused, where if you were in a battleship and you got into a situation where there's three cruisers behind islands where you can't even see them, you don't even know they're there, and then you get
You're
spotted
done.
by a destroyer or whatever, and you start getting farmed, and there's literally nothing you can do about it because there's just so much damage coming out. And then you mix in a high fire chance because the initial reduction of fire chance was so low that it really didn't matter,
Didn't matter
honestly.
at all. Yeah.
Exactly. So it became something that was necessary, and oftentimes for me, I view things that are truly necessary in this game. If you have, like, if a ship is like you build it this way or it's useless, then that ship is a very, it's kind of a one trick pony,
It's a
and there's
limited
not
ship.
much, yeah, there's not much variety you can do with it. So that's where you have this kind of new meta that comes in, where you have people just sitting as far back as possible and shooting HE exclusively the entire game, and it kind of creates a more passive uh, team set because the guys that are aggressive die immediately, and then the guys in the back watch them die, so they don't want to push up, and now nobody goes in. So
And you end up giving up. You give up a lot of map position that way. And I
exactly.
know it's like some of these caps. There's been an influx of players recently over the recent times, and you can kind of tell with the Twitch and the way that it rolls at how. I mean, I don't. Maybe you can correlate it or not, but the Twitch drops. You mean that boosted Twitch. It. Maybe I assumed that there was more people coming in, but more and more people today are taking their boat and they're spawning in front of A cap and turning immediately to the right to go to C
Yeah.
across the board. And you see that when that happens, you end up giving up extreme amount of map pressure. And you literally have one pressure on this one thing, and then they just get 3/4 of the map on you, and then you have to push back into them. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And IFHE empowers these cruisers to punish those guys as they're slow rolling battleships back in. The best thing that you can see in a Worcester is a freaking GK just slow rolling right into you, or even
Yeah.
down in the lower tiers like the aforementioned Atlanta, a Colorado. That guy, I don't care. That guy's dead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hurt him so bad because he got within that 12 kilometer. It's
Yep.
13.3, but let's be real. 12 kilometers is pretty much the effective range on that thing, and at 12, this guy's taking at least 30 to 40,000 damage just based on IFHE and fires
Yeah.
and everything else. Not to mention who else is shooting at the guy,
Yeah.
and that's what you want to see. I don't know, man. When it initially reacted, I was playing a lot of battleships at the time. I was trying to grind out some of these lines that I hadn't finished yet, and I saw a big dip. I saw a big dip in battleship effectiveness just because they were probably dead by the time that they were actually being able to be effective positioning wise or this or that, or and there was about a three, I would probably say about a month transition into, okay, now we really need to pay attention to what we're doing and really focus on these cruisers. And once you start
Yeah.
focusing on those cruisers, trying to get them down, then what do? They add accuracy to them. They add range to them. So now I'm having to fire at Zhao's or Henry's with, well, at least the Henry's with IFHE from way out, and they're just way out there, and it's almost impossible to do the damage that you need. So then becomes, okay, well, now what do? We end up not shooting at that guy because we're just wasting our time, and we end up taking a more opportune target. Then what happens?
Yep.
He burns us down. And it's so frustrating for battleships right now because of IFHE. It just put the cruisers on such a different level. And the battleships have yet to recover from it. Honestly, it's been another two. It's been, honestly, I don't know when the IFHE came out. I want to say about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I guess, at this point.
I'd say that's about right. And I think currently, at least at high tier, cruisers often are the most powerful class. I have higher average damages on almost all of my cruisers than I do my battleships because of that ability to just dish out damage consistently on any target over and over again, setting those fires, watching DCPs, immediately reapplying that damage. Meanwhile, battleships, I mean, you suffer from a lot of things. You don't have the vision, you don't have the ability to easily just get away. Your superstructure is often higher, which allows you to get spotted easier because if you guys didn't know, that the very peak of your superstructure is where your spawning starts. So some ships it's higher, which means that if you roll up to an island, you're going to get spotted even though your superstructure is still behind it, if it's low enough. Compared to like destroyers or cruisers that have lower superstructures, you can hide that. So you could be spotted by a destroyer that's in the open, and then there's a cruiser that is firing at you consistently that you can't even see. And I don't know, I think this change will definitely make battleships a lot more able to do different things, such as push. I think it's not going to be super different, but
well, let's go ahead and dip into the change here. I'm just gonna read. I don't know if I really want to read this whole thing because it is kind of big, and I'm gonna go ahead and link this into the chat. And if you guys over on YouTube, I'll have this in the description below so you guys can catch up to what we were talking about. Basically, it's saying, let's see if I can cliff notes this for you. Is that every cruiser will be able to pin every cruiser at its own tier. That's basically what we're talking about. And if we're talking about battleships, 152s without IFHE at tier 6, 6, and 7 will not be able to penetrate. So you're getting that old school HE feel. The next thing at tier 8 and 10, you cannot penetrate at all with the low tiers at the 152s. We're talking tier 6 and 7. Cruisers at tier 6 and 7 you can penetrate, and then cruisers at the higher tier you will require IFHE to penetrate these things. The 203s at 6 will penetrate everything. The 152s at from what I'm seeing here, did they do this twice? Am I reading this correctly? Sometimes they have a hard time doing graphs to where it's actually the right graph, but this says this is the same stuff. Battleships 6 and 7 will penetrate without IFHE with the 152s. Battleships will not penetrate will only penetrate with IFHE. Cruisers will penetrate, and then cruisers at 8 through 10 they will penetrate. This says 6 through 7, but I'm assuming it's 8 through 10. With the 152s or whatever has the 152s, they will penetrate, and then the 203s will penetrate everything basically, with or without it. I'm assuming.
The 203s don't get affected at all. Really, it's just the 152, 155s, and then lower like Akizuki and the British destroyers.
100.
They're going to be, they're arguably going to be the most affected in terms of doing a lot of damage. Their roles might shift more to exclusively destroyer hunting for the most part, because you're going to have to run IFHE. Exactly, you're going to have to actually run IFHE on Daring, say, or Jutland to simply pen destroyers. But what you're giving up is a 50% reduction in your fire chance, which
which is
having a
huge.
low percentage, I guess, is not as detrimental as having like a 20% down to 10, but it's still going to be very noticeable in my opinion. And I think on the flip side, with Haragumo being like the godly farmer forever, that's not really going to be the case anymore. Same with Kitakaze and Akizuki, um, because of that fire chance being just cut so far down. Sure, you're still going to get fires, but it will never
It'll
return
knock down
to
some of
how
the
it
things,
is now.
which will alleviate some of the pressure on the battleships because they
Yes,
are
exactly.
suffering so hard right now.
Yes.
And I'm not a battleship crybaby. I'm not a battleship advocate at all. I do play them, and I do play against them, and I do play as them, and I do see the disparity on just how much fire chance is coming out there. Worcester just is a freaking monster. In pretty much anything is a monster when you're facing a battleship. Um, uh, Overall, I think that this is going to do one thing that I think is negative, and honestly, this is the only thing that I can think of the reason why that they would not do it at all. Uh, the dictation of that you are now forced to take IFHE as instead of having an option. This is the only thing that I can think of reasons why they would say, no, we don't want to do this because we don't want to force you into playing our way. And that's something
Yeah.
that they've always said that they would, well, we really don't want to we're going to force you guys to make a choice now on the battleships with AP versus HE. On versus playing with destroyers and everything. I think that this is also on the other hand of this is actually good because you either going to force them to do this or you're not, or they're not going to do it, and they're going to be at a big hindrance if they do take it. Their fire chance is going to be low. So I mean I'm kind of on the fence here. This is for the battleship side of it. I really see the good side. For the
Yeah.
cruiser side, I see the negative. I see the negativity on this side because that lowers their potential damage.
Exactly.
Which is all well and good. Now they are forced to make that choice, giving us a choice. And honestly, I think they should just take IFHE fire chance off to 0, make it 0%. You cannot have fire chance with this thing that pins, because now you become broken. And so them lowering it halfway, yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I would say for um, the pickoff is, do you want to deal a lot of damage just raw alpha, or do you want to kind of be more of a dot IFHE, or sorry, a dot HE spam with fires, or do you want to do more uh, just simply shooting the bow, the stern, and the superstructure? The other one is you're setting fires and you're kind of running away, or you're watching for other people to set fires. They DCP. Now you're going to set a couple fires and then run away, or do you just want to kind of try to do to the similar effect of what it used to be of HE farming from a distance? Um, I just worry that the uh, non-IFHE will be so bad in terms of dealing damage that you would just be better off taking it anyways, if that makes sense. Kind of, it would be a almost replication of what it used to be, but that IFHE will just be hands down still better. I feel like I don't know. I just can't imagine doing like a tier 8 ship fighting tier 10s will literally be able to do nothing without IFHE.
Right.
Like a Chapayev.
And
Like
and
Chapayev
yeah.
shooting a Yamato will literally do nothing.
And this is the problem that I have overall
Yeah.
with this change is now you're forcing me to put into these 4 points are now have become mandatory. Up to this point, nothing is
Yes.
mandatory on anything that you play, other than last stand on DDs. I think that's probably the only mandatory skill I think in the game that's mandatory for every destroyer. I don't like that mandatoriness. Like we're dictating your playstyle. I don't particularly care for it at all. So I don't know, man. It's kind of a hard change. It's kind of a hard change to swallow. And guys, this is still in super testing. They haven't confirmed that they were going to do this or not. I do remember them saying something about armor plating changes, and the way that it will interact with battleships. So if you are angled, then you can bounce more shells, or I guess, which is going to
Yeah.
frustrate the shit out even more and make the cruisers even stronger. Which I don't think that they need to be even stronger than they are now, because they already bounce way too many shells, and there's
Yeah.
overpins galore on the broadsides of things that should be citadels and kills. Um, I don't know.
Well, then
Go ahead.
with this change, so the nice thing is that with the cruisers getting, so all cruisers will have like higher, the upper plating on the sides, the midsection upper plating will be higher, um, on all the ships that don't have it already. So say like on a Minotaur, because it's tier 10, it'll have, I forget exactly what it is. I think it says it basically. Where is it? Mm-mm-mm. Essentially, the amount of armor on the sides is to the point where you can bounce shells if they don't hit your bow or stern, because the stern, like bow and stern on Minotaur is 16, but the midsection, above your plate will be, I believe it's 27 to 32, something like that. And so you can actually bounce a lot more shells. But for cruisers, if you strip their damage, then you need to increase their survivability. So like what you're saying about how if they're like right now they're extremely powerful,
Right.
but they do have a lot of cruisers do suffer from having weaker side belts on the upper area. So if you buff that, but then lower their damage, I think that's where they're trying to shoot for, in that kind of happy medium area where
Yeah.
you give them a little bit more survivability, but you take away a little bit of damage
Right.
in terms of their dot damage. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It's hard to say without
Yeah.
seeing anything yet.
It's hard to say. The only thing that I can predict is going to be a lot less dev strikes, even less than there are now.
Yes.
And I've noticed. I don't know. Maybe you've noticed this, but there's a lot less dev strikes in the game in general over the past. Since the Missouri's come out, there's a lot less dev strikes in the game from what I've noticed. I know my total of dev strikes has gone way down, except for like the lower tiers. But
Yeah.
very seldom do you see it. Well, do I see it anymore? But it's I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. With you lower the damage, you do have to give them something back, and I'm okay giving them something back. But I still want the battleships to be able to punish them when they make mistakes. And if this goes to the point where now it's up to RNG again, if I'm going to be able to actually punish this guy and knock him off the board, overall that ends up being a buff for the cruisers because they're able to survive longer, and negative for everybody else because now they're still going to be able to do the alpha. They're still going to be able to set fires, and something along the lines of the Worcester putting out that much damage, or put up that much shells, or even the upcoming Friesland with an 11% fire chance currently, or the Colbert or the Smolensk or anything like these. These things have extremely they just spit out shells ad nauseum for the entire game. Is 50% negative enough? Is 50% nerf on that enough? When I can still hit 1,000 shells a game, literally 1,000 shells a game.
True.
I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about this. What you guys have to say about this. If you guys want to leave those at SirVenomIK right here in the chat, and I can copy pasta those over, and we'll hit some of those later. Overall, when ifhe first came into the game, like I said, it shifted the power balance, and I think they took the power out of the battleship's hands and left it with the cruisers for a long time. And I would like to see them shift it back to battleships, because battleships are supposed to be the alphas in this game, other than carriers, but those don't really count as boats. With the cruiser, and then maybe you buff destroyers a little bit so they can actually counter the battleships the way that they're meant to. And I still think cruisers should be a little bit weaker versus battleships. So I think the battleships maybe with this case, I've made this complaint so many times on this podcast about ifhe not being, or fire prevention not being good enough.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're on 3 fires as opposed to on 4 fires, you're still on those 3 fires all majority of the time, or 2 fires all the time. and 10% fire reduction chance is not good enough. So hopefully that with this, they'll lower some of the fires out there, and maybe the battleships will be able to actually come back into prominence again and see those big damage numbers and punish these guys that are going flat broadside and not being knocked off the board like they should be, or devastating them to where they're pretty much ineffective the rest of the game, or they have to like run, or they're not going to be out in the middle of nowhere. They kind of push them back a little bit, which I think is a tool that's drastically missed in the game right now. Being able to do these damages, it's either all or nothing from what I've found over the past pretty much the past 2 years. It's either all or nothing. You either dev strike them or you don't do shit, or you overpin everything. That's kind of my feelings on it. But for the cruisers that this does affect, and it's going to affect them very well. It's going to be great for them. It's going to be great for these cruisers. They're gonna see their damages go from 1,500 a salvo to 2,000-3,000 a salvo, and you're actually gonna be able to pin these things that you may or may not have been able to pin before, and that was left up to RNG. So I'm all for removing RNG from the game a little bit. You still need some, but to keep it interesting, I guess. But yeah, getting rid of some of the RNG in this game is always a good thing. Always a good thing, and it's going to make these cruisers handle and perform a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, I'd say.
Especially when you're bottom tier. Especially when you're bottom tier.
Yeah, for sure. Those thin armor plating cruisers will actually have a chance to bounce some things, but the key to it is that they only did the midsection. That's the key. So if you try to shoot for their stern, which if you're a battleship at low tier, you generally can overmatch cruiser bows and sterns, and you hit that area, you're still going to be able to do considerable damage.
Right.
And if the cruiser is broadside or at more of an angle, now battleships will actually be able to get more pens on cruisers,
which is good.
So it's kind of the reward for, it's good for both sides. It's good for the cruiser because if he knows what he's doing, he can have a chance to bounce the shells if they're fired in properly. And a battleship, on the other hand, can know that, okay, if this guy turns out, and if I don't just simply hit his citadel at this angle, I can actually get pens rather than over pens, which will do something more than the couple thousand damage.
Which is absolutely something that needs to happen. I mean, honestly, as a battleship player, you play quite a bit of battleships that I've seen, and are pretty efficient in your battleships. Those 5 hit, I got 5 hits, but they're all fucking overpinned, and you were hitting straight on that water line, and you're just like, how? They're overpinning the citadel. Oh, Wargaming says that there's no such thing. You can't overpin a citadel, and I'm like, bullshit. Tell me what this is.
Oh yeah, I have a clip actually of a Minotaur coming out flat broadside to me. Obviously, I have no choice but to shoot, and I was in a Massachusetts, and he pulls out right in front of me about, I don't know, 3 kilometers away. He had to have been at damn near 90 degrees exactly, because I fired all of my shells, left holes in his massive citadel plate that you can see. Like there's no question about it. It's a picture that's showing 6 holes in his citadel that goes over like this, up and down, and they're right there, and they were all over pens, and he torped me, like I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah. You get your 8,000 damage or whatever, and you're like, son of a bitch. Yeah, what do completely. I do now? That is one of the harshest and most frustrating things about the way that it's played at the moment is when you are broadside on these things, especially something like the Worcester. I have such a hard time hitting the Seattle from broadside, the Worcesters from broadside, and it just does not do the damage that I feel that it should do. And you put 3 shells in there, and it's all over pins, and it's such a frustrating thing. So if, you know what, we'll see how these armor mechanics work and change, and see if we can actually get get into these guys' citadels and actually punish them for being broadside, which will
Yep.
lead to more. I think it'll end up leading more to a very rigid style play instead of the flexibility that I appreciate and the flexibility that you appreciate. I believe. I just they're just going to sit bow in even more and so it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
But that's mostly done on the light cruisers. The heavy cruisers, you're still able to actually get into them and do some decent damage. I mean, we taken some big chunks out of buffaloes and out of demonis and big chunks out of the Zao if you can actually touch them, and the
Yeah.
Henrys if you can actually touch them. But the Worcester and the Seattle and even the not so much the Cleveland anymore, but it's still frustrating. Some of the lighter cruisers out there.
I agree.
All right. So what does that mean if these guys are going bow in though? I mean, let's take a look at. We've only been talking about some of these light cruisers. Let's take a look over at the battleship side of this, and what does that mean for the 15-inch guns of the French guys? What does that mean for the Germans at tier 8 and the 15-inch on 7s? What would that mean for the Warspite? It's got 15-inch guns, right? I mean, the Warspite still knocks the hell out of everybody, even now. So what does that mean? How do you think that's going to affect those smaller caliber guns? I know the Scharnhorst is going to be with its 11-inch guns is a joke anyway already.
Yeah. So
for damage.
with smaller guns, you often have more velocity in this game, and the downside of having high velocity is having almost too much pen in certain circumstances with smaller armor, because you can have a larger shell with a slower velocity penetrate the same thickness of armor and get a penetration detonate because it's slower compared to those really rapid velocity shells from the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau. And so, like, I mean, Roma especially. Everybody
Right.
says Roma's the overpen king, but the reason for that is because of the velocity. The key to Roma is you fire at people when they're angled because you need that extra thickness to slow down your shells a little bit for them to detonate. And so, with an increase in armor at lower tiers, albeit pretty slight increase, it still gives more effective thickness when they're angled, which then will give you more chances for more penetrations.
Right.
On, say, like Badionis, because Badionis and them, it's either they're literally get one shot and die, or they take 50 overpens and get away with half their health left.
Right.
And now that'll kind of be a little bit more balanced for battleships, and it'll actually, and I believe it'll help battleships as a whole. And I guess for it, the 380s, the 15-inch gun ships will still be at a disadvantage as always, because those cruisers can bounce their shells even easier now compared to, say, North Carolina or something. But they at least have more chances to pen than they do now. Because Scharnhorst, I mean, oh my God, that's all you get. And I swear, I mean, that's one ship that I truly, honestly don't really care for, because it's
Which one?
Scharnhorst.
Yeah,
I really can't make it work
I can make it
because I just overpen on everything.
I can make it work, and it does okay on broadsides, but you show any angle, man, it's a joke. It's a joke. The main guns on that thing are they're just too small to be effective.
Yeah. And so basically recognizing slight angles is what's going to need to happen. So anyone who is playing 380 ships, or I guess 15-inch guns, ships at a level where they understand, hey, this guy's angled a little bit, I think I can pen him. Those people are gonna benefit from this armor change on the side of cruisers. But the people that don't realize that and still shoot at only broadsides and I guess angled targets are gonna actually have I guess it's going to be less noticeable on the positive side of things and more negative for them.
Right.
So.
I guess I guess when you're playing 15-inch guns versus something like a Demonies up there at tier 10, it'd be pretty rough. I mean, I don't think there's anything
Oh,
that you can
exactly.
do.
Yeah.
And I really don't think there's anything that you can do at that 15-inch other than hit him high
Yeah.
or hit him low or whatever you want to do. But more along the lines for the light cruisers, I think it's going to be a little bit better. I have the unwavering distinction of being 3 kilometers in an Alsace and this is old school Alsace before the rework, and when the Bourgogne comes out, bouncing from 3 kilometers, 11 shells, bounced
Yep.
11 shells off of the bow of a Baltimore. 11. Man, I was so mad, and it's just such a dumb mechanic, that auto bounce angle when these shells should be ripping his boat apart, and they just bounce.
Yeah.
And it's hopefully it alleviates some of that feeling, some of that frustrating feeling. But who knows? Who knows? We'll see when it actually comes into play. But there you go, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the ifhe changes that are coming forward, you guys go ahead and leave them in there, and we'll get to those here in just a little bit, man. We're hanging out with my man Oni the Wicked. Twitch.tv/ONIthewicked and at ONIthewicked over on Twitter. If you guys want to hit him up, send him messages, maybe some nudes. No, nudes or lewds, either way. Send them there. If you guys are hanging out here in the channel at twitch.tv/servermik, I do thank you guys very much for hanging out with us. If you guys are also want to hit me up on the Twitter at sir_venom_ik. If y'all have any other questions moving forward. All right, boys, there you go. So we talked about all the news. We talked about all the topic. The only one topic that I wanted to talk about today. And now let's go into something that gets a little bit personal for Oni the Wicked, his particular ship spotlight. Is there one ship out there that you like to bring a little bit of light to, or maybe it's a really popular ship that you just really enjoy that you would like to tell us about today? And maybe some of these people who haven't played it, maybe they can work for that.
Let's see. I'd have to say, just from a fun perspective, I'd have to say the Lyon, Tier 7 French battleship. It's probably one of my favorite ships to just have a interesting game in, because it's anyone who's played through the French line knows that with those 380s, the AP is sometimes atrocious and it doesn't work. So you need to be able to think about where you want to shoot, what you want to shoot, and how you want to shoot it.
Well, the Lyon
and
guns
being able
are
to fluctuate.
Lyon is Tier 7 battleship is 13.5-inch guns, and they have
so there's
16 of them, and they are very bad versus
Yes.
angles. Very bad versus
Yes.
angles with its AP, which I find
Exactly.
Anyway, and I'm not a big fan of this boat because of
Yes.
that reason.
And the reason for it is because it's a challenge to make things work. And I went through a really big stint, and somehow I have no idea how, I was literally just memeing on stream with this ship, and I had never played it before. When that line came out, I had skipped all the way up to the top. I did not play the Lyon in terms of grinding. I skipped it, which I regret now. But when I went back, I ended up somehow getting #1 on the leaderboard for that ship just from literally memeing. We were doing triple divs with Business 6 and 3 Leons, like some weird stuff. And it's just so crazy. Drive by like 6 Citadel dev strikes on Musashis. I'm talking some crazy fun stuff with that thing. And so if you look at it in that light, and don't be afraid to use the HE. The HE, you can honestly, if you have someone else helping you, whether that's a div mate or not, you can help, or you can counter Musashis in a Lyon by HEing him over and over again, and you'll just burn him out. Or you do the dream for me is doing the drive-by. You got a nice big 155 millimeter plate on the front of your ship that if you angle just right, it essentially presents itself as a pretty big target, and it looks nice. It's right where the cheek is on Musashi. They're not getting through that. That's 155 millimeters of angled armor. That effective thickness has to be at a very steep angle, has to be almost near the high 800s and so you can make some weird stuff happen with it. But I mean, I just think if anybody, any Battleship fans, if you wanna improve your skills with shells that seemingly don't do anything, play that ship because it'll help you a lot once you kind of understand how it works. It's an opportunist. You're gonna get a lot of death strikes on cruisers.
You said the word there that makes that a yes for me. I'm like, I'm not a big fan of the Leon because there's literally only one way to play that thing, and that's mid range, to be
Exactly.
quasi effective with it. Your AP doesn't do good on angles. If they're broadside, it absolutely demolish anything. The HE, if you're showing any angles, the HE is great. And the one downside to this boat is I play kind of aggressive. And the Leon, unless you're just trolling around, you're probably not playing this thing very aggressive at all. You're probably playing a little bit passive, and it doesn't have a very strong push mechanic.
Exactly.
Being having one gun, and you can only, if you are going to push, you have to push one side of the boat because your guns turn extremely slow. But absolutely, don't bow straight up into this thing because you're just going to get smashed through the nose. But if you do open up a little bit, just like the Richelieu, just like the Nelson, even in the Dunkirk, if you open up just a little bit, you can hit that hit that armor plate and mitigate a lot of damage. You might still take 4,000 or 5,000, but you mitigated a lot more than what it would be. It can be very fun played in a division of 3, where you guys count it down 3, 2, 1 and hold the trigger.
Yeah,
I know that's. I think that was a big meme for a long time. It's pretty much any cruiser is going to get wiped off the map if you hit them. Hit them with that. Destroyers, man, it hurts the hell out of destroyers with its AP and its HE. And I wish people weren't trying to do dishes in my background right now.
But yeah, it's a, I don't know, it's a fun ship. It's one of those ships that sometimes it can definitely be a pain, but when you get those scenarios where you're actually able to, take full effect of those 16 shells flying at somebody at close range of relatively fast velocity. At long range, the shells do get very floaty, but I mean, man, there's very few matches that I am more fond of than getting a top tier cruiser heavy Leon match. It's one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, it can be very enjoyable. Can be very enjoyable for some people. The Lion, it's a good boat. I don't mind it. I'm not going to play it. It's not my choice for ranked season. I mean, I don't find it very effective in ranked, except for those real rare occasions. Unless you're slinging HE 90% of the time. Especially
very situational.
Especially this ranked season where Synops were out there.
Oh God!
Those
you
guns,
got punished.
those guns really couldn't pin the bow end Synop. But the guns that could were the bigger guns of the Colorado, which I found very effective versus bow end Synops. We're talking, 10, 11, 12,000 damage on bow ends if you actually got your dispersion. Nelson's actually did very well gun wise. On the bows of Synops, but they did not receive damage very well at all.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. Even the Ashitaka, if you got one in there, you could hurt the bow of the Synop, but not the Lion and not the Scharnhorst, and I want to say not the Gneisenau either, because good luck getting hit anything from that thing. But the Lion did perform. I know a lot of people that played it, and a lot of people that played nothing but the Lion, and they seemed to do very well in it. So it all goes to show you that who cares what anybody says? Play the boat that you're comfortable in, and boat that you know for rank season. So speaking of that, the rank season's going until the 23rd. If you guys still have a little bit of time left to get that 10,000 coal for ranking out. Well, that's it. That's our ship spotlight, guys. Let's go into the Q&A session now. If y'all have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we talked about today, at Sir Mike here, you can question me, question him, question ONIthewicked. And there you go. So we got a few questions here, or a few comments that I've seen. They were kind of talking to each other here, and not really to us, asking these questions here. So Azul1 says, Sir Mike, do you think that the Soyuz will be strong for the upcoming season of ranked? Absolutely. It'll probably be the number one battleship pick, other than maybe the Musashi. just because of its bigger guns and bow on tanking capabilities. Those are going to be hand in hand, I think, for the top at Tier 9. Followed followed by the Missouri for number 3, and then some. There's going to be a bunch of ding dongs playing the Georgia, thinking that they're doing special. So, what do you
Yeah.
think?
I mean, I think I put Soyuz. I actually made a list for my like picks. I put Soyuz up there. Um, I definitely think it'll be just naturally really good with its ability to kind of just sit in an area and hunker down. You have the ability to uh, just deal really accurate fire on cruisers and destroyers and battleships, so it makes it into a pretty versatile ship. And with the tankiness, if you guys really want to go super hard, you could put Kuznetsov on there for that cheeky
That cheeky
heal
heel.
right before you die.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty strong pick. Um,
It's a good tanky, man. I've heard people 3 and 4 million potential damage on this thing,
oh
and
yeah,
they ended up dying, but they still were able to focus that much potential damage on themselves as opposed to it spreading to a cruiser or destroyer that really can't take all that much.
yeah.
So
And
it's
naturally, they do better in an environment where there's less ships because they have the really rapid damage cooldown is on the damage control is I believe it's 30 seconds roughly. So you can get that off pretty rapidly to prevent fires from draining your health away. You got a pretty strong heal and a good HP pool with really good armor. Obviously, your downside is that you have a very large citadel. So if you ever get caught broadside, you're probably going to take quite a bit of damage. But all in all, it's just a really good pick.
I think so too, and I know everybody has their personal opinions here on what boat is better than what other boat, and in the end, like I said earlier, it's all in what you're comfortable in. What do you play well? What do you play extremely well? I remember the last Tier 9 rank season we had. I was playing the 46, and people would come in there and they were like, why don't you play the Jutland? The Jutland's better than the 46. And I'm like, motherfucker, I just won 7 goddamn games in a row on the fucking 46. Why the hell would I want to fucking switch to the Jutland?
Yeah,
Well, it's better. I just won 7. Fuck you. You know, it's like I'm going to play what I'm playing, and I
yeah,
probably this time around play nothing. I'll probably start out on the 46 this time because I did so well in it last time. And then adjust it depending on the frustration level of that rank season moving forward. Yeah. Danny Todika says, question for Oni. In the final of the Ship Storm, your team looked a bit flat. Do you think you should have had a small break before the final?
Um, well, I think the problem with that was we went into a match that we were not like we didn't want to play on ring in the first place. And so we were told that it was like basically forced into the rotation because we got to pick a map, the other team got to pick a map, and then there was one that was already set to
Mm-hmm.
be in there, and we couldn't ban it, and we didn't really have a very good strat for it. And plus, on top of it, our comp of Akizuki, Helena, and either Gneisnau or Sinop didn't necessarily fit very well into ring. As anyone who's played Akizuki knows, it's not the most maneuverable destroyer there is, and it's not the greatest in close quarters. So we thought that we were going to be on a level playing field with Derp, and honestly, that was my bad for not uh, essentially creating a secondary comp for us. And on round 2, they switched their comp up to have a Cleveland, Jervis, and Synop. So they were mirroring us initially, and they swapped to that, which caught us all off guard. And then their strategy and the ring match was very effective on what we did. So I don't think a break would have necessarily done much because at that point we were just honestly hoping to get it over with because we just were. I mean, I was pretty nervous and I just wanted to keep playing. That was just a strategic misplay, to be honest.
So, live and learn, and now you know. Now you know. You move forward. The
exactly.
next time that situation happens, you'll have 2 or 3 different comps ready to go. I think
Yep.
that's probably the. I think that's the key to here that we learned.
Exactly.
Rudy says, I love World of Warships more than World of Tanks, just because you see what you shoot in World of Tanks behind bushes, you see their marks, and wow, a real fight even. So there you go. He likes he basically likes ships better than tanks, and I agree with him. I think tanks are kind of meh. Down and
Never
dirty
played it.
tricks. I've played. I'm talking about like real life tanks. I'm not all that impressed with
Oh,
tanks, but
yeah.
I've played maybe 7 games in World of Tanks, but I didn't care. Down and dirty
Yeah.
track says, what does he think of the rentals being more used in more events? Fucking rental shimmas. Personally, I think rentals have no business in rank season. I busted my ass to get to tier 10, and they're just basically letting these guys play tier 10 rank just for having a tier 8. I'm sorry, play up to tier 10.
Yeah.
Number one, number two. When you do that, you also dilute the player field. You dilute the talent level, and it makes a lot harder for other people to get good matches where you have players that you can actually count on to do things.
I think the issue with rentals is I do appreciate them trying to compensate for those people, but at the same, on the flip side of the coin, if you're renting that ship, that likely means, and I know there's a few people that might have multiple accounts and are playing on a rental that
Right.
obviously have played the ship before. That's an exception, but the people that are playing them that actually uh, don't have that ship, they've never played this ship before. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know how it works. They don't know how it feels, how it shoots, how it, they don't know anything about it. They don't know its
Yeah.
role. They have no experience, and you're taking that person and just throwing them into an environment that's supposed to be somewhat competitive
Right.
because it's called ranked. So you're naturally by default, if that person is someone who's never played that ship, you're giving that team a disadvantage off the bat. And I think that's not very fair to the other side if they don't have any.
I had one example this time, and honestly, I thought CVs were more of an issue in rank season than rentals were. Whatever. I'm not gonna fault the people for playing the rentals. I fault them for being available to the people to play for rentals. But we had one instance where a guy was playing a Zao with no camo. I was like, oh, you ain't got no camo on. And he's like, yeah, I'm renting this ship, and I'm like, okay. And then I look at where he's at, and he's going into the fucking sea cap at like a minute and a half into the game, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just trying this boat out. I'm like, do that in somebody else's fucking game. Quit doing that shit in my game. Play the fucking boat. I don't know how to play the boat. Well, then don't fucking play the goddamn boat. If you don't know what you're
Exactly.
doing on something, you're bringing other people down, and I have to rely on those people to
Yeah.
help me out. So I thought it was very unfair for the people that had earned their tier 10s. Now I understand, second accounts. I've got a rental Shimakazi out there or whatever, but it's my second account. I kind of know what's going on. But this guy was 100% serious. He only had like 100 games in the thing, or 100 games like total. Why is this guy? He bought his tier 8. He bought his tier 8 boat out of the premium shop, played it once, and got all the rentals. So what? Why is this
Yeah.
guy? This guy has no business being in there because he has no idea how to even play the game. Number one at 100 games, and he bought his way.
Exactly.
He bought his way into it. So I feel it's a gross misuse of rentals, clan battles, whatever. I don't care. I don't play them. So you have to take your expertise on rentals in clan battles, but not for rank season.
Yeah, for clan battles it's fine because it's a group choice that you do that, right?
Hmm.
It's not a random here you get the rental that has no camo and worse detection and doesn't know how to play and blah blah blah. It's a known choice of this guy likely probably knows some he has been at least told how to play that
Right.
ship
Like
or
I
has
saw a lot
played
of
it on the PTS or something like that. So when he goes into clan battles, it's whatever.
I thought in the very short amount of time that I've actually played, I think I've played maybe 60 games in clan battles total over all of the seasons, and which is not a lot. And I think I saw more rental Moskvas than anything, and that's fine because it's kind of a quasi tank. It's like your second battleship basically for tankiness. If you don't have like a Stalingrad or something, and
Yeah.
it was fine, and it did very well for us. It did very well for a lot of other players as well. So I mean, in that aspect, in my limited knowledge on clan battles, I don't really find a big deal about it in clan battles, but
Exactly.
yeah.
When it's random, eh.
Yeah. When Krieger says, "Why does Oni rock the Malcolm in the Middle haircut?"
Malcolm in the middle. I'm stuck. I'm stuck with my. I'm stuck with my military style. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do.
Just grow it out, man. Just grow it out and then figure it out. While you're
Yeah,
doing it, just
exactly.
grow
I'm
it out,
kinda
man.
just rolling with it.
Yeah, just grow it out
Rolling
until you
with it.
figure it out, man. I personally, I was kind of forced into the military haircut when I lost all of my hair, so I just kind of shave it off all the time. Anyway. Rudy says, "Thanks for being able to listen. No problem, man. That's what we're here for. Listen to everybody's comments about the game. Some matches are decided in 5 minutes, or far more often as well. A hint for better players as more of a close match." I'm not sure what he's going off on there, but I do agree with this statement that within the first 5 minutes, you can pretty much tell how this game is going to go based on the direction your team has gone. If they're and and this is something that has surprised me a lot lately. If you guys remember the Old North with the D outside, that way outside cap on the 8, 9, 10 line, where there was a D cap way out there, they moved that off and they put it up there at A and B. You have A up here, B up here, and then you have C and D in the middle two places. Nobody fucking plays that middle cap.
Exactly.
Like, nobody fucking plays that middle cap, and it's beyond me at why people don't play this fucking cap. If it's A, B, and C, I always play that B cap, and I control that thing because that's free fucking points, people. Play that middle cap. And they continue, even sailing and waving at the fucking no battleship line, still continue to go out there. Now, it can be an effective strategy if the rest of the team is doing what they need to, but when you take 8 people down that one line, I mean, come on, guys. Now you're giving up A, B, C, and D, or A, B, and C, just so you can get around to the flank. I'm sorry, flanks aren't that important in this game, but going to get a cap, that could make or break the battle, and it could keep you into the game. This is why I've advocated capping. I love objective-based gameplay, and I absolutely despise standard battle because it's very slow. And objective-based gameplay gives me a beautiful objective to go do, and I can play around this, and I can gauge how I'm playing based on what I'm doing around that cap. Whereas standard battle, you're pretty much basing your performance off whether you win or lose, and or maybe somebody else has their own personal thing that they're doing, but you really gotta go play for these objectives, people. And it's beyond me and how much of these maps that they give up just to go to the outside, and it's kind of messed up.
I agree. I don't know. It's a pretty big deal. I think with holding objectives, you're right that it does give you much more to do. Standard battle is oftentimes it's a farmer's paradise, but in terms of like actual gameplay, it can be very, very, very dull and slow. And I mean, have you had those games where your team splits to the edges and then there's a destroyer that goes straight up the middle?
Yep.
And caps, and you're like, "Are you kidding me?"
You see that on the hotspot. On the hotspot rework. I hate that rework. That just diamond formation of that map really fucked that map for me. I really like that map until they put that diamond formation in there, because now there's this big wasted fucking space in the middle. And when I approach that to some of the guys at work, well, people go to the outside anyway. I don't care. you're missing out on some action in this middle. So now you have this big useless section, and now you're playing into that camping mentality of the players.
Yep.
Let's go out to the outside. Well, I would always play for that middle, try to get that kill, try to get that cap, and then you have an advantage. Then you can flex over to the left side, you can flex over to C and start dropping torps on these guys sitting behind the islands. And now all you have to do is go straight up the middle and go into their fucking cap, and you're like, what? What? If there's no CV in there, shit, I'm there 100% of the time, motherfucker. I'm gonna go into that cap, and I'm gonna back cap them. I'm gonna go all the way back to the one line, and then come back around and drop some torps on them or whatever I have to do, man.
Yep.
I hate that 4-cap. Hate that 4-cap hotspot, man. It really kind of screwed up the mentality for the players on that thing. They're like, okay, well, whatever. We don't have to fight for that now, so let's just sit here. Yeah, it frustrates me, man. 3-point captain says, I like the way Oni explains his process, his decision-making in the game's progress. It's been very helpful to me as a relatively new player. So there you go. Compliment, man.
Sweet.
I think it's a compliment for you. There are too many lone-playing fellows. Wargaming should start a division event or should do more for clan games. This is a real team game, hard to do alone, fun with others. I've always said that if you want to up your win rate, if you want to up your overall win rate, quit playing alone. Play with some other dudes. Get out of that head. True. And I have absolutely zero. I don't care about your solo win stats. I don't care about them. I care more about your division rates and how you react with a division. I don't care about your solo. It doesn't make you a better player because you play in solo, and I play in divisions, which I hate playing. Honestly, I think this game is very slow and boring when you're playing alone. And when you play alone, you end up playing more selfish. And when you play more selfish, your shots go up and your damage goes up, and maybe your win rate, maybe you're going to win as well, but you're not going to be less apt to go push yourself into that cap for that team because you need that cap at the end of the game to win, or to offset them taking your cap on the other side of the board. You're out there to farm damage, and it's very, 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 very frustrating to sit there and listen to people. Oh my, your solo stats are this. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I play because I want to. If I'm having a bad game, maybe these guys can pull me up, or maybe I can see something. Maybe they're seeing something that I'm not seeing something. It's always a better option for your win rate to go in divisions. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say divisions are good. I mean, I think there's a good balance. I went through a lot of stages for me, and obviously my case is different because I was, like, for me, I was playing in the realm of like trying to get onto the best competitive team that I could, and to do that I needed something to show for it. So for me, it can be different, but overall, for the average person, yes, please don't play alone especially when you're starting off, because like slight experiences from you or someone else can not only help each other improve, but you can learn from each other just by simply talking, and that will help you do better overall. And if you do better, and you win more, you're going to grind up their lines faster, which is going to allow you to do more in the game in general. Absolutely. And now there's a lot to do in the game, so why not go with other people?
Let me extend this a little bit more. SAT has made a comment here. Said, don't forget to improve your own gameplay. Divvying with friends doesn't automatically make you a better player. No, I agree with that statement 100%. But I also agree with this statement here, well, I haven't said it yet, but I also will say this, that if you div with people that you perceive as better players than you are, then you're going to get better, because you're going to be able to pick up some of the things that they're doing. You're going to be able to listen to what they're calling out, and then, maybe you die early one game, you go in there, oops, I hit a torpedo, my bad. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard, to judge what happens in a game, and then you just watch what these better players are doing. How is this guy? I was watching fucking Potato Quality the other day, and arguably one of the best cruiser players in the server. Really solid player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he definitely is, and I was like, holy shit, dude, this guy does so much fucking damage and farms so much, but he's still effective with it. He's not just, okay, I'm just farming this guy until he's dead. He spreads that shit around. And, I've got fire over here. Okay, let me start working this guy. Let me get a fire over there. Okay, that guy repaired. Let's go back over here. And I was like, that makes a fucking lot of difference. And being able to pick up on that, help my Yoshino gameplay, which I think is a fucking fantastic boat, by the way. The Henry gameplay, the Zhao gameplay, and I've just gotten so much better in those, even though I haven't played the Zhao.
Yeah. No, you're right. That was where I tried to shoot for, was like, I don't want to be that guy that people are like, oh, you're just damage farming in the back, blah blah blah. Like I want to make such a big difference that people see me back there, and then I help them kill like 3 ships, and we win 2 to 4, what, like a 2v4 or something, and then they're like, holy crap. And I honestly, because so I used to get, no joke, I used to get reported a lot, like way back. I didn't say anything.
You
I was
hackers.
just, because I was like not, I wasn't at the point that I wanted to be at yet. So I was basically playing pretty selfishly by myself and damage farming. But then I got to the point where I was able to do that and get 3 fires rolling on different ships at one time, and like making a difference to the point where people were like, holy shit, this guy's like saving the match for us. And I noticed the change, and that's where you want to shoot for. But to get to there, I wouldn't necessarily recommend, being that guy where you someone's like, hey, can you help me, and you're like, no, because I'm burning this battleship down that's not doing anything and not helping the match. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be the
Yeah.
guy that's like, you can do a lot of damage to this battleship, but as soon as a destroyer gets spotted, you're looking at that DD and
Yeah.
shooting at him.
Absolutely. I mean,
You know?
it's all on priority of targets, right? If you see a DD as a
Yes.
battleship, you automatically you want to throw your shit at that. But if that DD pops up and you got a broadside cruiser, take that shot opportunity on that cruiser, because you never know. You might overpin 6 times, but you're going to hurt him, or you might dev strike him off the board, or you might miss. Who knows? But I mean, that's a shot of opportunity, and I've had to change
Exactly.
my mentality about that a lot lately. I made a video back in the day as. It's called "You Give the Order," and it was more of a game show style thing about what choice would you make in this situation. And it was really hard to get people to realize that, look, you have a DD sitting here in front of you, you have a cruiser bow in, you have a battleship in the back. What shot do you take? You take the DD
Yeah.
shot. Well, then the second slide was a broadside cruiser, a DD running away from you, and the battleship is still coming in. You take that cruiser shot, and then the third one was the battleship is flat broadside, and you have a cruisers turning away, and then the destroyers smoking up. Which shot do you take? Obviously, you take the one of opportunity. There's a mechanic in Dungeons and Dragons, which is an attack of opportunity. If somebody comes within your little range, and they move out of your range, you get a free smack on them. And that's basically what that video was trying to show. And
Yep.
I really can't emphasize enough to the new players out there. You don't have to focus on don't tunnel vision. Open it up.
Yes.
After every shot,
Exactly.
look back and say, okay, I click the button, I hit the shift, and I come back out, and I'm looking at what's the next one, and I go back in, shoot that guy again, and then I'm looking for the next opportunity. And I think that's helped a lot of my games, because I've been focused on this battleship for so long, and then, oh, here's another cruiser, let me AP this guy down, and I end up killing him, and then I come back here and I kill this guy too, because I was taking those opportunity shots. There's something to be learned in that, I think.
Exactly. No, you're completely right about that. I think with opportunity shots, you go, like, battleship is, when you're playing battleship, you are a ship of opportunity. That's what you do. That's why a lot of times it's not necessarily the best to just fire your salvo every single time it's up. You want to look around, get a good sense of not only who is visible now, but is there a guy that I might be able to get a spot on, or someone else might, and he's going to be broadside in a second, or whatever else. Or,
Yeah.
oh, this guy's smoke's going down, and it looks like I can see the puff starting to go away, and he's still sitting in there. My destroyer's right next to him. He doesn't know he's there. I'm going to get ready for that shot.
Right.
And that mentality is huge for them. For cruisers, it's more of a, how good can I multitask, really? I mean, you're shooting at this guy while getting shot at by this guy from different angles, and then destroyers is kind of more the predictive class of where's this guy going to be, and then playing the mind games of, do I torp here or here?
You know what?
And
That's exactly the mentality that people need, and that unfortunately is something that you, Oni, and me cannot teach people. That is one unfortunate thing is I can't teach experience.
yeah,
I would love to. I would love to, but I cannot. So we as streamers or we as people that want to help educate the masses
hmm,
in
yes,
the ways of the world ships, we have to educate them on a lot of basics because every situation is different and what ifs, and you end up spending hours and hours on what ifs this, what if that. Okay, well then you do this.
exactly.
But until those people are in, and I just don't, I just refuse to go into those what ifs. But until after the fact,
Yeah,
until
that's
after it
why I
happens.
always that's why I always preach people like if you're trying to learn and you want to get better at the game, don't sit back and shoot and snipe and all that. You're not gonna like your true growth moments are that when you have a battleship to your right that's about to turn broadside, but you have to angle to him. Then a destroyer comes around to your left. You have to dodge the torps to the left. How do you get out of that situation? There's a cruiser to your like those crazy circumstances where you're like, oh my, your mind is just like going crazy because there's so much going on. That's where you're gonna improve drastically compared to just sitting in the back, slouched in your chair, click, click,
Yeah,
click, click, click. You're not going to improve nearly as much because the
absolutely.
experience overall is going to be 10 times more from that one battle when you're getting shot at by, this guy, this guy, this guy. That's why when a game is ending, if you're really not, if you just want to get experience, you don't really care about stats or whatever, like if the game is lost, don't be afraid to try to do something.
Yeah,
You don't have to
go
be that
push in.
DD that runs away for 6 minutes when it's a guaranteed loss and you
Yeah,
just waste everybody's
oh,
time.
I
Like
hate
try
that.
to make something happen. Like go in for that YOLO torp because maybe you might get it and now you're gonna get another 70K and it's a loss anyways. Plus you're gonna die sooner, so yay! Now you get to do another match. It's
Yeah,
like it's
there's
just
a,
it's better for everybody.
there's a lot of things that I did just because why not, like taking Kawachis on Solomon Islands into the B cap. I would do that
Yeah.
because I hated that boat, couldn't hit anything anyway, and only had 9 kilometer fucking range at the time. So I was like, I'm just running this thing in there. I'm going to try to get some
Mm-hmm.
secondary hits and pray that I hit something, and ended up learning a lot about that boat and
Yeah.
learning a lot at the capabilities of slow turrets versus fast ships and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, man. I wouldn't recommend it to people, obviously, but anyway, let's move on. We got a few more questions here, and
Sure.
before we're out of time here, and we're actually over time by about by about half an hour now, but that's fine. SAT score says positioning seems to be the biggest problem. I find players that are decent at aiming, but they aren't in the right place at the right time or know what they should be doing. Um, I find that quite. Um, I find positioning being of the 30% of the game that is actually skill. I find position being the best, the most important.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Getting the shots, getting the cross shots, getting maybe understandable. If they're playing something like a Colorado or Arizona that's drastically slow, they may not be able to get into those positions very fast, but making effective when they do,
Yep.
I think that's pretty. Be effective at whatever position that you are in, working toward your final goal of being over here with the rest of the team.
Yep.
I think that's a loss for a lot of people.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I can think for positioning is just a cyclone tip that I would like to give everybody. If you're in a div and you come across a cyclone, if you guys group up and you have either a battleship, two battleships, or a battleship and a cruiser, you can have it where um, essentially one person will go to where they expect the enemy to be. The other guy is going to go out in a 45, and as soon as that enemy is spotted, the other guy comes in at that 45. So you're widening the angle on that guy, and he's forced ultimately to pick
Either
who he
angle to
shoots at.
me or angle to you,
Yes,
one or the other.
and who he angles to, and
That's
you
right.
can keep cranking that angle to the point where there's no escape. And it almost always works compared to the people that you see that kind of group up right next to each other and just go, almost like the lemming train ideal where you just follow each other around. Um, that almost always is going to get defeated by someone who's really working those cross shots. So in
Mm-hmm.
that situation, you can see how positioning is
You see it a
truly the
lot.
crux of those battles.
The perfect example is rank season clan battles. Rank season in particular is where I pull it from. Is I'm going over here on what's the was it Sea of Fortune with the AB cap in the middle, uh, right on top of each other, and then C cap
Yes.
over on the one
Yep.
side. Yeah, Sea of Fortune and Montana going over to the one side with a spotter plane can hit that guy sitting on the island over at AB. From Charlie, and that's an amazing shot to be able to take that. But not only are you going to be effective on your own cap at Charlie, but you're also being able to cover somebody over at Alpha Bravo at the same time. And man, I've popped some pretty nasty depth strike shots over there, killing those radar boats. And without radar, I mean, the enemy's
Yeah.
pretty much blind, and your DDs can pretty much run rampant over the rest of the game, and getting those goddamn caps. Uh, let me skip a couple of these questions here. At Loop 4, what's up, bro? IFHE will still be hands down better if it allows ships to pin. Guaranteed damage is always better than relying RNG to give you fires. That is a 100% true statement. And in with my fire chance in this game, I have gotten the absolute worst RNG when it comes to this game. I had one game last night. I did the most fires I ever did, but I also shot like 1,000 shells, and I got 20 fires in the freeze land last night, which is arguably broken ass boat as it is right now.
Yeah.
But absolutely, if I can take away some of that RNG
Yes, I
factor
agree.
and boost up the guaranteed things, then absolutely I will do it 100%. So yes, bring it on. SAT is also asking, the last question here is from your SAT score. It says, Only the Wicked, what are your thoughts on the new French legendary captain? Now, we didn't talk about the French legendary captain today because I didn't find out the information until like literally 30 seconds before the show started. So I don't have any information on it. Oni, have you got any of that?
Yeah. So basically, what that captain is going to be at. It's a pretty drastic um, amount of buffs. I think they need to reduce it quite a bit. It was a buff on fire chance,
Oh, no, we don't need any more of
and
that.
exactly, I know, and it was also, if it was for each dev strike you get, you got a permanent 1% increase to fire chance for like that match.
Hmm.
Um, and that's on top of the torps being 75 knots, basically torpedo
They're 8 kilometers
monsters against
now.
destroyers. Exactly.
Yeah.
So in knife fight situations, you could arguably make pretty easy plays on destroyers with that speed and from not only the torps,
Hmm.
but also the ship. So you have the in similar to like Yamamoto and the other captains that are more like the extra unique ones, not the normal French ones or normal U.S. ones, but the Halsey, Yamamoto, and Kuznetsov and all them. So you get those extra traits basically.
Yeah.
Um, I think if they tune it down a bit, it'll be fine. But
Right.
right now, it's definitely overblown for
Yeah,
sure.
just go throw a CV on him. He'll have no problem just dodging that.
Yeah.
Actually, there was one more comment in here that I thought was pretty interesting, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask this one too. Bollock says they should get rid of high explosive on battleships and instead have short fuse and long fuse AP, which you can switch between, much like you do AP and HE switching. And I counter with this. Destroyers no longer take full pin from certain caliber guns, right? Why then do the British battleships suffer from the same thing when they have short fused AP, which is designed to explode faster,
Mm-hmm.
through less armor?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. And it's not going to make any difference at all whether they go to short fused AP versus, because it all overpins now.
Personally, I don't. I think that idea is interesting, but it. I think my initial thought is that it just wouldn't be worth the switching because it would be ultimately rough. It would be pretty similar, but I don't think they could provide enough differences to make it really that much like of a worth value. I think the only thing else they could do is add a different type of shell for a new line that would be AP that wasn't necessarily like explosive. It would more mushroom out or something like that to create just damage, not necessarily that explosive damage. So it might have that would be a whole new thing they would have to invent. But in terms of a new shell, I feel like just having short fuse and long fuse, that's technically already in the game, like Venom said, but it's just not. They would have to redo a lot of things. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
I think for the light cruiser line where we overpin quite a bit anyway with our regular shells, I think maybe you could make an argument for that because we do overpin the Worcesters and the light cruiser line a lot, and I've already said that twice, but we have. I think maybe maybe it alleviates some of that, but hopefully this armor change will alleviate that even more to where we're actually doing the damage that I feel and being rewarded for actually getting good RNG as opposed to having the good RNG on our shots and then being for no reason because you only did 2,000 damage to the guy. So we'll have to wait and see, and then maybe in the future they can think about something like that. I don't know. I don't see it working currently though.
Yeah.
So there you go, boys. That is all we have. Actually, if you want to do that, then why not have deep water peds and regular peds on the Pan Asian DDs to make them effective? I exactly. Hate the deep water peds on destroyers because they just take your ability away to knock out your counterpart. But it's neither here nor there. Guys, that is it, man. Episode 28 is now in the books, boys. Oni, this is the time of the podcast where you can go promote yourself, man. Tell them what your schedule is. Tell them where you're working. Give them all the links.
You guys can head over to my channel and throw me a follow. I'd really appreciate that. You got the link right there. I can copy paste one in a sec.
Yep.
But those of you who have been here the whole time, I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and Venom. And those of you who are here to spoil me and your goodness, my mod team, I really appreciate you guys. All the support from you really makes me super motivated to keep going. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter as well. ONIthewicked across the board on all social medias. I think that's about it.
What's your schedule?
I appreciate you having me. Schedule is every day at 5 p.m. Central. We usually try to kick the show off and play a lot of tier 10s, tier 8s, pretty much everything.
Yep.
So
there you go, boys. ONIthewicked, I want to say thank you very much for coming on to the cast with me, man. I do appreciate it. Well, I know we tried to get this done earlier, but there was a scheduling conflict, and we had to postpone it till now, man. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Future updates here. July the 19th, we're doing a 24-hour stream at number 52 on celebrating of 1 million page views here on my channel. And then 12,108 followers. We'll be doing some code giveaways. Next week, July 23rd, is my birthday. We'll have me, Jace, join us on the podcast. We'll also be giving away a USS Massachusetts. And July 30th at 9 a.m. U.S. Central Time, Earl Grey, straight from St. Petersburg, Russia, will join us on the podcast as well. That's July the 30th. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I am Sir Venom IK. That is ONIthewicked. Say goodbye, man.
See you guys. Thank you so much for chilling.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Thanks again, man. Guys, that's it.